I'd like to take a minute and call this meeting of the Kent County Commissioners it's a budget workshop session today on May the 2nd, 2023. We have some outside agency budget requests and 4 different outside agencies that we're going to hear from today, and we're going to start out with the Animal Care Shelter for Kent County, and the Executive Director, Mr. Richard Cavaney. Come forward, sir.
I have a handout for...
We've got it.
You got it.
Uh-huh.
And this is on page 36 of your allocations.
I gave him separate
Oh,
schedules, so we wouldn't
okay.
have to flip.
Oh, got it,
And I
okay.
think that he has a handout
And
too.
so that you don't miss any words of my compelling argument and or requests, I also put a business card with my cell phone on my little 2-pager, right? You got that?
No, it's not.
Do they have the ones I...
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Stuff first, but, okay.
Since you are serving the constituents of this county, I want you to have my business card with my cell phone, because rumor has it, once in a while, you guys hear, all of what's going wrong in the county, not just the animal shelter, but all of our institutions and organizations. And I would encourage you, go right to, pardon the pun, horse's mouth, if it would help you serve the constituents. I know Mrs. Heller, I remember fondly a Friday night phone call about a Rock Hall resident complaining about his neighbor's 4 dogs barking, and I think we addressed it. We made a budget request this year for $342,000, which will represent about 33 to 35% of our budget. Last year, we asked for 324, and we received 292, which we have received for a couple of years. This plea, or this request, does not include the 7% interest rate that we're paying on our construction loan. That's a whole different budget that has to rely on foundations and donors. Does not include any new animal control vehicles, which we do not have. Does include animal control on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it will include, or does, expanded hours for community access. Starting June 3rd, we will be open Wednesdays through Fridays, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. instead of 4. And Saturdays 11 to 4. And we'll make an appointment Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday if there's a need. With moving from the former animal shelter, which by the way went under agreement today, fingers crossed, we are only adding 3 employees to our staff. We were able to design tremendous efficiencies, and I hope it will be paying off. So we hired a volunteer coordinator, full-time, who her sole job is to recruit and train, because we do need a robust volunteer force because we're limiting the paid staff. And we have hired 2 new animal care techs. We pay them $15 to $18 an hour. Thankfully, with a sprinklered building, we have a flat insurance premium this year. Our utilities are going to go up because we're on town sewer and water, but our electric is flat because of the efficiencies of equipment. We have already started our high school and middle school engagement, which we think short-term, mid-term, and long-term will benefit a lot, because, kids, if they learn poor behavior or not how to interact with animals at a young age, it could result in challenges. The most exciting thing I have to announce is, as a shelter, we already walk the dogs 3 times a day. And starting June 3rd, they will now have a potty break, not a full walk, but at 6 o'clock, which really reduces the overnight stress on the animal for holding their bowels. Just some highlights. I also gave you the animal control incidents of this year. Our report is 262. I will tell you it's probably closer to 300 because a lot of reports don't get in, depends what day of the week or if it was in the middle of the night. But more or less, this is our benchmark. And you'll see that we had everything from 1 major abuse, 12 aggression, 14 bites. Most of our work is animal at large. Feral cats, 28, does not include the feral cats that we actually go out into the community and trap. That will be about 80 to 100 last year, to get the feral colonies that you all see around the county under control. The question that I've asked, my board has asked, and I think commissioners should ask and will ask, are our expenses in line? And I will say that the second page I gave you, you will see that when you compare Kent County to Queen Anne's County, different size, shape, population map, we are paying $476 per animal intake. We are spending $476 less an animal per intake. And we're spending $858 less in animals adopted. Our adoption rate, along with Queen Anne's, we're slightly better. 60% of animals taken in last year were adopted. When you ask the question, what happens to the other 40%? Everything from the returned home. We transported 43 cats to Maine, where they don't have a cat overpopulation. They actually need cats. So there's all kinds of disposition. It doesn't mean 40% were euthanized. We are a no-kill shelter. I think we had 18 euthanasia occurrences last year. Finally, the second page, my Excel spreadsheet, and I do thank a member of the administration of Queen Anne's County. They all came out to the shelter twice, once under construction, once finished. I do believe they're planning in the next couple of years to build a new animal shelter, and I've offered our guidance. In return, share me all of the detail of your budget, your budget, and your intakes. And I broke it down to, they have 2 different budgets, Queen Anne's County. And you may know that the nonprofit animal shelter was closed a couple of years ago and taken over by the county for lots of different issues. Queen Anne's Animal Control budget is $435,000. Our portion of our total budget, animal control, is $341,000, and that includes allocating part of my salary. My deputy's with us today, Michael Wessel, part of his salary, because we're all involved in this stuff, but not to the extent of officers. Our animal shelter budget is $585,000 for this coming year. Queen Anne's, $1.2 million. So Queen Anne's is spending $1.6 million on animal control and animal shelter care. Our budget this year will be $927,000. I believe last year was 816, but with the new shelter and whatnot, it's more. Comparing apples to apples, I put down the intakes, because that's the benchmark. Hospitals use room beds, beds, hotels, room nights, animal shelters around the country go by intake. And our intake for the calendar year was 832, Queen Anne's 1,029. More, but is it significantly more compared to the size of the county? And of the 832, we were able to facilitate 497 adoptions. Queen Anne's was able to 601, so it's pretty comparable. I told you 58, 60%. And I am excited to share January, February, March, and April, since we moved into our beautiful new facility, we have had the most adoptions in at least our brain history on our staff. Animals are presented better, the facility is more approachable, and it's a fine location, thanks to the help of some of our commissioners in the past, helping us relocate. Finally, I thought it would be interesting for you to see the wage categories of our 4 different levels of care compared to Queen Anne's. And, with our animal care tech level, we're all in the same boat. We're 15 to 18. We're really 16 to 18. They're 16 to 1850. And then it does skew higher for the directors. And when I saw this, I must say I have polished my resume for Queen Anne's, but that's a lie. But any questions?
So basically, you're asking for an additional $50,000 over last year's budget.
I'm asking for, to right-size the county's contribution to its animal control services and related shelter services.
Which the county portion is $50,000.
It's $50,000. It would have been only $30,000 more if we got our requests of $320 something last year. But I felt it's 2 things are going to need to happen. Your agenda over the next several months is quite extensive. But we do not operate with a contract or a memo of understanding, and I think it will benefit the county and the shelter if it's going to continue to do this kind of work, and we want to, we should. It's the right thing. It shouldn't be a complete taxpayer burden. Queen Anne's should really try to entice a nonprofit organization to help out in this direction. But I feel it is very fair for what we are doing for the county and its residents. I focus in on the 33-35%, not half and half, because we're able to, and we have strong support, and we manage one hell of a budget. We are not overspending, and our staff, they could make more in a different county, especially with county pensions and benefits, but we are fortunate that most of them enjoy working for us and in our culture.
I don't want to say this for the sake of Commissioner Nickerson, because I'm not sure how familiar he is with this, being the first budget you've gone through. But by annotated code, we're required to do animal control. The rest of the nonprofit is, their choice, their mission, but we outsource animal control, which we're required to do to the animal care shelter of Kent County.
The only other question I have is your animal control officers that actually are on call. How many of those do you have?
2. So, Commissioner, how we now do it is one officer is on call for 7 days. They have the vehicle, their phones are, with our new system, they can use their own cell phone secretly. And so one of them needs to have the phone on, be sober and alert for 7 days. That's asking a lot in Kent County. And they do a really good job at it. I will tell you, I'm just getting more statistics and details from our 2 animal control officers about, give me an idea. When you do get a call in the middle of the night, what time is it? And I'll tell you, it's when we do get a call, it's mostly from the sheriff or the Chestertown Police Department, because they have to call someone. It doesn't always mean they have to go out on the road. I mean, but it does happen, right? Car accidents and mostly car accidents.
Any other questions?
It's a beautiful building that you have out there. You have a ribbon cutting coming up, right?
And all of you have been invited, and I am pleased to announce that Mrs. Heller is going to be one of our 4 speakers. We promise to keep it, well, all the speakers except me will keep it short and sweet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thanks for your service.
Got John from the Schreitweiser is the director of Kent Cultural Alliance. How we doing today?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Good. Thank you. So President Fithian, Commissioner Nickerson, Commissioner Price, Mrs. Heller, Sandra, ladies, hello. I'm John Schratweiser. I am the director of the Kent Cultural Alliance, formerly the Kent County Arts Council. I am actually here today to ask you for significantly less money than I asked you for last year.
That's a good one.
Just wanted to make sure I have your attention. I do want to thank you for your generous
You
support.
didn't have it, you got it now. Yeah, good.
For your generous support over the 40 years, really, for all of the commissioners, 45, 47 years, 8 years that the Kent County Arts Council has been around. The county has been very supportive through Mrs. Raymond's tenure and through mine. Your special grant last year of $25,000 towards our building project was greatly appreciated and very, very helpful in allowing us to complete the building. And I want to thank you both, Commissioner Price and Fithian, for your presence at the grand opening on the 25th of March, and particularly also for the proclamation that you did for Vince and Leslie to recognize their contribution to the county these last 50 years. I would like to formally invite you all to come for a tour of the building, and I will work with the staff to find a time when that can be done at your convenience. KCA's impact is county-wide, and as the designated County Arts Council, we have board members from Rock Hall, Millington, Galena, Chestertown, and Tolchester. We represent and reach all corners of the county. We make grants to arts presenters, community service organizations, community partners, and most recently, we've been able to start making grants to independent artists to support their work. We take particular pride in the amount of funding that we offer and partnership that we offer to the fine arts programs at the Kent County Public Schools, as well as the partner organizations that we support who bring music, theater, and art into our schools through workshops, residencies, and performances. And I can easily tell you that our fine arts teachers are among our finest and best partners, and in fact, they are our heroes as well. This request is an increase over 2023's operational budget, and that is simply because our own capacity has increased as we begin to reach more and more members of the county residents, the residents of Kent County, and more community organizations that we are supporting. We are now steadily receiving programmatic support from the National Endowment for the Arts. The federal contribution to KCA over the last 3 years is over $50,000. The support from the state of Maryland, which is our primary block grant, continues to grow, and it grows annually thanks to extraordinary bipartisan support of the last 6 governors, going all the way back to the guy in the duck suit who jumped in the harbor.
William Donald.
Thank you, William Donald Schaefer. I'm sorry, I forgot. As such, Maryland is actually now second in the nation in per capita funding for the arts. And according to the Maryland Department of Commerce, Maryland's arts sector is returning $4 to the tax coffers for every dollar that the state is spending. The investments in KCA make the investments in KCA that KCA makes in Kent County helps to drive cultural and heritage tourism. It keeps artists working, it keeps arts organizations focused on service to the residents of our county, and it continues to drive economic impact. The last thing I want to end by saying that we are, at the end of May, we're going to be representing Kent County on a very national stage. We are delighted that we have been invited for a week-long residency to the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts for our production of Isaac, A Musical Journey. We commissioned this musical about 3 years ago, right before the pandemic started, as part of our partnership with Washington College's Chesapeake Heartland Project. The musical is written by Kent County's own Marlon Saunders, born and raised here, and the musical is based on the autobiography of Isaac Mason. Mr. Mason was enslaved by James and Mary Mansfield in the building that is now the Kent Cultural Alliance's Vincent and Leslie Prince Raymond Cultural Center. This musical tells his story based on the autobiography, and it is very much our hope that having premiered it at Washington College in June of 2022, this invitation by the Kennedy Center for a workshop will allow us to get this story in front of many, many potential theater producers from the Baltimore and Washington region, from New York, and from the Boston-Worcester region, which is where Mr. Mason lived out his life and from where he published his autobiography in 1893. So I'm excited to bring Kent County to a national stage in that way. We look forward to sharing this success and all of our future successes with you as we go. And I humbly ask for this small increase from $12,500 to $15,000 for FY 2024. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions?
No, sir.
Great.
Pretty well speaks for itself, John. Nice job, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor John Carroll from town of Galena.
Thank you for having us today, gentlemen and ladies.
Pleasure, John.
Yes, good to see you all again here. Actually, I have one of my council members as well with me this afternoon, Mr. Justinine Dispenza. So I came here probably about a year ago. We started talking about a project that we've been working on already in the town as far as getting our ducks in a row. And it's for our Galena, Georgetown, and Toll Park walking trail. And over the last year and a half now, we've started meeting with SHA. They connected us with MDOT. We applied for a grant for design and a concept plan for this project. What we're looking at is connecting the town of Galena in 2 directions, both of which kind of take us back into the county, benefit both town residents and county residents as well. County businesses as well, really one of the big parts of this impact will be. One direction where we're looking at is, which mostly would be in the town limits of Galena, and we're spearheading, is getting a connection from our center of our town out to the firehouse, and also out to the entrance of Olivet Hill, the community out there. That's one focus of it. And a lot of that can actually be focused, we can work with SHA in that project for final implementation of this, but it's the design. The main focus where we're really trying to go to is connecting the town to Toll Park, the county park up there, which is a huge asset for the county. It's underutilized, and it's unsafe for most of the residents to get there unless you're going by car. This time of year, you're starting to see everybody pushing strollers down the side of 213, kids walking, bicycling, and then you start seeing it the other direction. Folks from Georgetown, now they're on their boats, coming up to try to come into the town and come out to the park. It's dangerous. Actually, even our district engineer, Ken Fetter from SHA, that was one of the first things he noticed because he drives it every day coming back and forth to work. And he said he noticed it too, and that's why he got behind this idea of this project. Our long-term goal is that we can actually get basically from Mill Lane at People's Bank on 213 in Galena, as you're leaving the edge of town, to the bridge in Georgetown via a walking shared use path for bicycles or walking and pedestrians. I've been traveling the state a lot over the last few weeks with the Maryland Municipal League, and I've been viewing other cities around the state and noticing places where they put in walking trails and got through these projects, and I realized this takes years to get done. The ones who got it done, their economic impacts are tenfold of what the actual initial investment was. I was in Leonardtown recently. They have a really great trail system down there that connects their parks, their waterfront, and their downtown all together. And it brings in people from all over. From Northern Virginia, they're all coming in to that area. I was just in Prince George's County this past weekend. They have a trail system running that the county actually did, connecting the different municipalities and then the county parks from College Park all the way down to the DC limits along the Anacostia River. And when I was out there on Saturday, there was thousands of people all over the place. And little businesses popped around. There was tackle shop, there was a boat rental place, there was eateries, even fast food places that people were getting off their bicycles and going into. So I saw the actual economic impact of what you could do by creating safe spaces for people to travel on. Kind of backing up a little bit, we applied for a grant through the Kim Lanfear's National Bikeways program. We received $160,000 for that. Our project scope we looked at was for roughly about $200,000. It's an 80-20 split for this grant. So we can up to $160,000 we can have in grant. We would need to match 20% of that. We put it out for bid. Our firm that we did select, actually was the only one who actually even bid on the project, came in well under budget for doing a concept plan for all three sections, to Olivet Hill, to Toll Park, and to Georgetown. So we asked them to go back and say, what if we brought in design, the engineering, to get us to 90% completion of that? So they came in with two phases. The first phase being design, concept plan for the center of town to Olivet Hill and the center of town to Toll Park, yes. Those two pieces for the concept plan plus design, and then one last phase from Toll Park to Georgetown just for the concept plan. That's a little more complicated to get through because it gets narrower along the road as you get out there.
Which is the most dangerous part, riding your bike down that hill into the bridge and stuff.
Just getting these three pieces, it was just under $195,000 in total. What we put in was to share the cost between the town of Galena and the county, because it benefits both residents equally and businesses equally. That we're willing to contribute $20,000, and we're asking for a match of the $20,000 as well to go towards this. Most likely, we'll keep it a little under that. So I have the contract. I've reviewed it. Our staff's reviewed it. We're okay. We sent it off to Tom for legalese review. So hopefully, in the next couple of days, we'll have that items sorted out with that. I've shared it with Shelley as well and Mr. Molds. We've met multiple times kind of going through this, and I realize this is a long-term plan, but I already kind of have got the feelers out there for if we can get this part done, the design and engineering done, that if we can apply for funding by this time next year for actual capital construction by the following year. I put some feelers out there, and I think we have a pretty good chance for some either federal or state earmarks to actually get this project moving. It's a huge impact. It's kind of a gateway project, too. When you're coming into the Kent County, it'd be the first things you're coming down 213, leading you in from the riverfront into the first town as you come through. And that's kind of what Galena is, our gateway in that northern quadrant of the county. But, I mean, you can speak to it as far as the environmental impact of it. And really, it's the quality of life. We're kind of creating a place here that now if you live there or you're traveling here, everybody accesses all of these resources in this upper part of the county. So I feel like it's a really worthwhile project that we're putting into with a very low impact dollar-wise, because I'm going out there and trying to find the funding so that we're not all paying and our taxpayers aren't paying off for all of this. But I feel like if we can all share in that together, it's a worthwhile project for everybody involved. Do you guys have any questions for us?
What will the trail be? Is it gravel? Is it
So it'll be 8
seam?
feet wide. And
I'm sorry.
It'll be 8 feet wide, because the Kim Latimer grant is for a mixed-use trail, so it needs to be ADA compliant. It needs to also have, so I think gravel would not be it, but we're waiting to see how
The final design.
what they're
yeah.
deciding, because that is not our profession.
Yeah,
But-
and there may be in parts where it's hard surface, blacktop, or, yeah, and some part possibly in dirt track too.
And another thing I think is important to mention is we also got a grant 2 years ago to do a walking trail behind the elementary school, and we're also connecting other parks within Galena. I know, Mr. Fithian, you were here when we did the presentation with all the Google Maps stuff, but we're hoping to be able to do a 5K in and around Galena where there's almost no chance of being hit by a car. Because like John mentioned, people ride bikes, people walk, people take strollers down 213, and when you see one of the big logging trucks coming down from Pennsylvania, it shakes you, on your bike.
And this, what we're looking at too with this project, they're actually even looking at, to work with SHA on some traffic calming. And I know that's been an issue, it's an issue in the town, but I know it's also the issue for the county residents from Galena to Georgetown. Because you go 25 and you're coming up the hill, just past the cemetery, it starts going 35, 45, around the corner, and then just about when you get to People's Bank, it slows down to 35, 25. And there is a lot of traffic that kind of runs through, especially trucks. So the more we can do to work with this to create kind of obstacles a little bit along the edge of that road, visual obstacles, to kind of do some traffic calming in there as part of this project. So kind of trying to kill two birds with one stone with
And
this.
no cyclists.
Yes, not that. But any other questions you guys have or concerns about it?
What impact will this have on the private property along that?
So what I would say with this one, a lot of what we're looking at is utilizing, the state highway actually has most of the land along there.
It's 40 feet on either side, so it goes into the farm field
Yeah.
and people's yards. The
We were looking at was tiling ditches along a lot of that right through there and utilizing your shoulder areas and keeping it kind of out of the farm areas or the yards and things like that. What we're looking at each side of the road too is, and that's what the plan they're going to look at when they do the concept, is to give us a rough drawing of whether it should be this side or this side, kind of give us better judgment on where does it fit best. Because we can only look at it on a map. They can actually look at it, from a CAD drawing design standard with that. But that's kind of what we were looking at, was kind of keeping it right to the edge of the road, more or less probably along the side where the county sign is right now, because there's no disturbed properties along there where you're going through people's front yards.
2 farm owners, and there's already, I think, a 14-foot wide drainage ditch sort of easement there, and so we're thinking of piping that up and then
And
building
going
a trail
through
on
that.
top of it.
Kind of
Not
raising it off the
affecting
road.
The power lines or the row of pine trees on Colchester Farm, or moving it into the farm field so the farmer has the privacy still of
Yep.
that little line of forest on the edge.
Have you heard any comments from the landowners for the?
I've had some that are, yeah, they love it, yeah, let's go with it. Some saying, well, I need to see what it is. So I think that's the whole issue is, that's why I want to have a plan done.
That's fair.
If you don't have a plan, you don't have anything other than, subjection, which we're talking about. So, and that's kind of what we want to look at too, because I get it as a property owner too, and as a sidewalk in front of my house, same thing.
Same.
I've got to make sure that it makes sense for everybody and fair to them.
So this $20,000 request is basically for design.
Yeah, it's design and then 90% engineering for 2 parts of it.
And as far as long-term maintenance. on
That's
this
the next thing we'll have to look into, is where we go with it.
Is it something that you think that the town and the county would have to share?
Most likely, I would say we probably would go into some sort of an arrangement together on that one when we get to the point of actually getting doing construction. And that's something we looked at too in our budget is something that we can handle as well, but I think we could. if it's grass mowing and things like
We're open
that.
To having a partnership.
I agree 100% on that. Yeah, I mean, it benefits both of us. So that only makes sense that both parties would have, a stake in that.
And once we get to the Georgetown segment, I think that will be more economic driver, because there's 5,000 boat slips between the marinas now that the yacht basin is under new ownership, and those people are carrying those little black carts sometimes to Sassy River Market or to Cross Street Market and bringing vegetables back that way, so that'll provide a safe incentive for people, because there's no Ubers or Lyfts or anything, to buy groceries in Galena, to come in and stop at the ice cream shop with their families when they're parked at the kiddie night or whatever.
And I see some big things happening with the new Georgetown, I guess what's Georgetown Yacht Haven, I think they call it, instead of Yacht Basin now, with the new owners. And they're doing a lot of major upgrades in that facility down there, which is long overdue. And I can speak as a business owner in Georgetown for the last 15 years, or Galena for the last 15 years. When I first came, when that yacht basin was very well maintained and well kept, there was a lot of traffic coming out of there every Saturday. And as soon as that started to go down, business dropped off. And a lot of our businesses that were related to that tourism disappeared completely. So I could see something like this creating that economic driver and connecting with that new facility where they're dumping millions of dollars into to upgrade those facilities for everyone. It's a good impact of that. But I can't get anywhere unless I get a plan drawn. I can't apply for funding. I can't even talk about how we're going to maintain it unless I get a plan done. So I'm committed to working my way through this one way or another with it. But I'm asking for the county's support as well and how we do this.
Very good.
All right?
Any other questions?
All right. Thank you.
Mayor, have a good day.
Thank you.
Sir. Now we have Andy Hollis, Executive Director, Upper Shore Aging. Andy, you'll... Andy, you want to introduce everybody that's with you?
Absolutely, thank you. So Bill Shreves, our board president,
Yeah.
and Kay, Lord have mercy, Brody, our board member, and a Kent County representative.
Very good.
Want to go?
Well, shall I, I'll just start. Unlike the Kent Cultural Alliance, we are coming to you asking for a significant increase in our funding. Our budget request for FY '24 is for maintenance of our current funding and an increase of $175,000 to address an ongoing operating deficit, a 5% increase in wages for our employees, and an increase in our health insurance cost and related fringe. The total request is for $369,082. As the county's federally mandated area agency on aging, this funding is critical to our ability to maintain services for the 7,000 seniors in Kent County, which represent 36% of the total population. Talk a minute about why a substantial increase. The first reason is, frankly, our budget from the county has been flat for the last 4 years. And while that budget has been flat, our needs, our costs associated with the services have gone up. As an example, food costs for seniors, our second largest expense behind salaries, has gone up by 60% over the period of COVID, and our demand for that is increasing, not decreasing. Under Andy's leadership, we've fully staffed for the first time in many years. To do that, we've had to offer a more competitive wage in some cases in order to attract the people that we need, and that has increased our salary cost. So there's some of the reasons why we're asking for a significant increase. Andy, you want to share some details about what
So-
you're doing?
We've had the opportunity to speak to each of you individually, so we're not going to repeat all of that conversation. But you're well aware we provide over 15 services to the seniors in the county. Bill compares it to an iceberg. The large number are underneath the surface. People aren't aware of them. Then you have a couple above, such as Meals on Wheels and the senior centers. Just to give you an idea about two of those active programs. So for fiscal year '22 for Meals on Wheels in Kent County, we served 23,146 meals, 105 clients, congregate meals, We served 2,363. In terms of costs going up, just so you're aware, our average meal went from $5.82 to $6.22. So the people we're serving on Meals on Wheels, as you already know, are your most vulnerable. Those that simply don't have the economic means or the ability to get out and get food for themselves. We've already seen 2 people additionally signed up within the last week. You're aware the SNAP program benefits have dropped significantly, what was known as food stamps. So we are expecting, Department of Aging is telling us that we will see an influx of people that need additional Meals on Wheels services. So even though it's only one of our 15 programs, that's the one that you're very close to and aware of. As Bill has stated, we are now fully staffed. We are out providing more services in the 3-county area we serve than we ever have before, including Kent. So that means we have someone at our Amy Lynn Ferris Senior Center that can provide health insurance information, Medicare questions, directing people for general services. We now have a full-time senior care person for Kent County designated just for Kent with 40 clients. Things as small as a fall detector for a $500 investment to a rollator or a wheelchair, things of that sort. It may not sound like much, but it's life-altering for those people that simply don't have the ability to bring it to them themselves. The reason for the ask, and I know well how substantial it is, especially after Shelley shared with me today that you have about $8 million above what you have to spend. I understand the magnitude of that. With our 3-county contribution, there's been a disproportionate share of the other counties covering some costs. At Kent County, we either are providing those services or we need additional funding to continue to provide those. I'm a little concerned they may have been coming from other counties as opposed just to Kent for what we're providing. And I think we're trying very hard to realign so that each county is certainly supporting the services that are offered to its citizens. So I think, Kay, did you, anything additional?
Really?
Okay.
I would say that we're also looking for other sources of funding, for both through private foundations and charities and through the Department of Aging. We have been successful. Andy has been successful in getting funding to help our FY23 deficit through the Department of Aging, an emergency allocation from them. So it's going to bring us closer to finishing break even for the year. There's no commitment for FY24. We'll of course look for it, but we're not just coming to you and asking for the money. We're looking for other sources as well.
Yeah, I think there's a growing realization on our part that you can't just rely on county funding. We have an obligation to look for more grants. I think we've applied for more than we ever have in the past. We need to go to the state to try to push them for more money. You all know firsthand how hard that is to move that boulder. But we also need to be looking at fundraising opportunities and doing more and asking for less from the counties as well. So we have an obligation on our part too, to figure out where the money's going to come from.
So, any questions for us?
Just a comment. First of all, I want to thank you all for what you do for our aging population here in Kent County. Some of the programs that you offer would not be available if you guys weren't there doing that. And you perform a very important function in helping our older citizens with life. And that's very, very important. We have had those conversations. I think you've talked to each one of us privately to discuss your concerns and issues. And I certainly recognize that there are some issues. And I'm hoping that after we get a chance to talk more about it amongst the three of us, that we're able to try to help you out some.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
You certainly
you.
deserve
Thank you
it
very
because you have a very good staff and they need to be treated properly. And we'll do what we can for you, or at least I will.
Thank you, Sheriff.
No, I'll echo the Commissioner Price's comments.
And I will as well. And obviously, I've known Andy around. We've been kicking around politics for a while, and I think you got a good person there. And we're going to do what we can, believe me.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
We are in the midst of a regeneration and rebirth of the agency, and we appreciate your support.
Very good.
Absolutely.
And this is one board that I really enjoy being a part of from time to time. I know I don't make every board meeting, but
Understand.
I think it's well worth the effort.
Thank you very much.
We try to make them entertaining, Mr. President.
It can be that way.
I think a lot of that's got to do with his age, you know, he's creeping up there.
I am creeping up there.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
Okay, now, we're gonna do some review work, with Pat Merritt for our Chief Finance Officer, and,
Did you want to do that other piece first? And Jim is heading down, he's on his way down. So I don't know if you want to kick us off, and then, and the reason I say Jim's heading down is because last week you had discussed potentially putting on hold some of our recruitment to fill some of our positions, because you wanted a brief moment to talk about existing positions. So when Jim gets here, we can take a look at what's vacant, and you can give us a little bit further guidance on how you'd like us to proceed. But in the meantime,
Okay, yeah, we can certainly, start to roll through this. What, I'm sorry, I missed this. So we wanted to take a look at the calendar, because we had talked last time about, you know, kind of our process and how much time we really had. So I'm not sure that you can see this all that, well, I can see it all, but.
We've got to be done by May 16th.
Okay, all right, so we are here on, May 2nd, and I'm not sure how well you can see that, but we have, May 9th and May 16th, the next 2 weeks. On May 16th, in a perfect world, we'd be making final decisions. So we have the meeting tonight and 2 more meetings to kind of try and wrap this up. The next meeting would be, May 23rd, and hopefully we would, review the public hearing, because we do not meet the next week because it's Memorial Day, and we have to have the hearing the Tuesday after that. So the only option we really have to this schedule is if you wanted to meet that week of Memorial Day, if we wanted to add 1 more in here, doesn't have to be Tuesday, but if we wanted to do it, you know, Wednesday or Thursday. But just wanted, so we're really looking at 3 meetings to try and make all the decisions that we need to make, so.
And in all honesty, if we get too far behind or something, we could designate another, we could call another meeting for another
Any
workshop
week,
any
absolutely.
day, but,
But
And-
just to, we've still got a lot to do, so I know we had said we'd
Yes,
talk
we did.
about timelines, so that's kind of where we are.
and the reason I asked for the, last week to go over the personnel is because they're, you know, they're big ticket items. It's, and it's obvious with a lot of unknowns and out there that, we're trying to be as conservative as possible. And, so I thought, you know, a lot of these positions that have been vacant for a long time.
Yes.
And I think we could look at that and see if all of them are still needed. If we've done without them for a couple of years, it's possible maybe there's a case that we didn't need that position or something. And plus, there's also a list of new positions that are being requested as well
Yes.
from different departments and stuff. And, you know, I think that's a good place to start to take a look at.
So, my drive just isn't here anymore, April. I'm not sure what happened to it. It's the hard drive. There it is. I don't know where it went. Okay, and I guess the easiest way maybe to get to the vacancy list is out on the website?
I would say so.
Okay, all right, so let's do that first. We can start there. Okay.
There we go.
can walk down these one at a time, or if you know, if there's any ones in particular that you'd rather talk about first.
Some of these are
Some of them have
unique.
been filled, haven't they?
No,
The child development teacher,
there's still another one.
is it? Okay.
Some of these are one position and the person just left and we're actively recruiting. Others are very frequently, we always have a position of that title open. And child development teacher is funded through a grant, so that's an easy one. Another easy one might be to look at the program manager near the bottom. That's the MAT, medically assisted treatment program manager for the detention center, but right now we're using telehealth. And that is also a grant-funded position, and the grantor is okay with us telehealthing that instead of hiring a full-time position. But both of those are grant-funded either way, so you don't really need to look at those.
Who is the administrative specialist one, the first one up top? What department is that?
That's the LMB.
Is it? Okay.
And that's a new vacancy. We just had somebody depart, so we started advertising for a replacement for that one.
The associate planner has been vacant for,
That was a new position that was pitched in the budget last year, and the commissioners gave us the okay to proceed with advertising prior to the new fiscal year even coming around. So that is a single position that has been vacant for a year.
That's in the
That's a new,
planning office.
right, and that's a new position.
And the county's never had one before.
Correct, that was a brand-new position. That was to relieve some of the workload from the existing staff. So the goal here today is to give HR guidance on what to do with these, since you had asked for a pause on recruitment. So the answer doesn't have to be yay or nay. The answer could be, let's pause on that one.
I think pausing that one makes good sense for now.
I just put an asterisk or something besides these ones that we've got some issues, that we've got some questions about.
so the associate planner, we're saying, put in the pause category.
I agree to that.
And going back to the administrative specialist, is that, how many administrative people does the LMB have?
Only one. And that's primarily paid for with the governor's office.
This one is. Now, is that one, did they just do some interviews here recently for that position?
No,
Which one, I'm sorry, I didn't catch.
the LMB administrative assistant.
Yeah, the one
Did
in
we?
LMB, yeah, we actually have 8 candidates that are in our pipeline, actively interviewing. They're pretty close to their preferred candidate at this point. They're down to, of the 8, they have a couple that they like a lot.
Jim, why don't
Can you come up,
front?
please?
Back here,
Just hanging out.
come on down.
Yeah, that one, they've sourced 8 candidates thus far, and actively interviewing Rosie and Jen in my office. And they have a couple that they're pretty keen on, that we think we could actually fill the job in the next couple of days if things go correctly.
Well, it sounds like they need that position anyhow.
Yeah, it's a
Right,
single
right,
incumbent
so-
position, and oftentimes, because of the nature of work at LMB, Rosie and her, and,
The local care team.
yeah, are
specialist.
out and about in the community, so this person oftentimes is in the office, administrative work, but also is there as the support person.
I believe that correctional officer, I think we could put a
Pause on that one.
pause on that
We
one as well.
almost always have at least one vacancy
Yeah,
for a
and
correctional
that's,
officer.
Is it just one position or is it more positions?
That one I don't know. Do you
The
know how
correctional
many
officer?
vacancies we have right now?
There's 2.
Two.
On,
Okay.
yeah, there's 2 on my books, and they've had a number of candidates in the pipeline, but they haven't settled on anybody yet.
I'd pause both of them.
Yeah, I would just put a hold on both of them.
On both correctional officers?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And next is the Director of Emergency
That one's the one
Services.
we're gonna talk about tonight in the regular meeting.
And just for clarification, in 2 weeks, we're looking at personnel. So we'll revisit this in 2 weeks. And anybody, if you have a question about any of the positions, we'll have the directors in here to be able to field questions on the 16th of May.
The Division Chief of Water Wastewater Services, I'm not sure, Jim, if there's any activity
Um,
there.
We've gotten only 2 responses thus far, and in our opinion, neither really are qualified. We have provided the information to Mike, but it doesn't look like it. We're looking at expanding some of the search on it, but it's been pretty small pickings so far.
I think, for now, I think I'd put a pause on that one too.
That's
I-
been vacant for,
Been vacant for a long time,
For
yeah.
literally
And we
years.
just, and they have, recently, we've hired 1 or 2 positions out there, the water and wastewater and their deputy director. So they've gotten some help, but
We can talk, any one you put on pause, we'll talk about in 2 weeks.
this one where your pointer is now, the division chief environment, that's Marty Holden, I assume.
yes.
Is there someone who could,
Serve an acting position.
right, yeah.
I don't know how
think
we're
they have
handling
any
it.
internal-
Well, I will
That's
tell you
probably-
this, not, the people that you'll run into out to the landfill and stuff, you probably are not, but Tina knows that,
Oh, absolutely.
Tina knows that inside and out.
Absolutely.
With the public, because that person's in charge of our public landings, landfill, all our trash removal and,
So she's probably doing the job currently.
Should probably do it.
Between her and Mike, probably, yeah.
yeah. Maybe
Well, that's a
just
good
put,
conversation.
let's put an asterisk behind that for now, and then maybe we ought to bring Tina in here and talk to her and see if there's something we can, let her tell us whether she's capable of doing some of that work or not. I don't know, just worth a conversation.
All right, and then, Jim, do you know how many motor equipment operators you currently have vacancies for?
2, there's one that could be filled as a 1 or a 2, and then there's another one that they want to fill as a 3. In total, for the 1 or the 2, there's been 4 candidates in the pipeline. We haven't seen anybody at the 3 level yet.
And the one for the 3 is specifically for environmental ops, you know?
It's,
Or is that a different one?
yeah, it is environmental ops.
Okay.
I had to get to my note, but yes, it's specifically that.
How long have these been?
We almost always have at least one MEO in roads open.
Vacancy,
I assume.
a vacancy.
Yeah, the first one, the 1 or the 2, opened in end of February of this year. The 3 actually opened at the end of November of last year. There just hasn't been a lot of traffic, but to that point, in March, we started expanding the way we do recruiting, as you all have heard in previous meetings. So I'm a bit more optimistic than I would have been if I'd been here in November or December. But it's still, the pickings aren't great yet.
I'd say put both of them on hold for now.
I was gonna say, my recommendation for now is to just put a pause on those 2 positions, and we'll have further discussions with Mike Molds and them, and maybe we'll change our mind,
Right.
but,
So just to clarify, there's one MEO 1 or 2 and one MEO 3?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and then, the lifeguards,
we can't touch that, 'cause we don't, I don't think we're gonna get enough of, they're hard to come by.
They are, even the ones that come back year after year, that pool, no pun intended, is starting to shrink. And they're working pretty hard at it between what Jill's doing and what Jen's doing. They both have been reaching out to people who've applied or people they've known from the past But yeah, they're not close to needing, to everybody that they need yet.
The next two they're just seasonal workers that we can't hardly do without them.
The weed control, we'd probably have to talk to Mike and see if that can be absorbed in roads.
Yeah, I don't know, I think he has one person, but he's looking, they'd like to have two on the
We
week.
had one person.
Oh, okay.
That person is not going to be able to fulfill that position
Well, maybe
for
we
us.
just leave that one open for now then, and.
It's a grant.
So it's not quite
Lot
a
of
grant,
it.
but State Highway pays us
Okay.
a significant chunk of money to do the weed control along state highways, and that helps fund the rest of the program. It's an enterprise fund. I don't know if those people are out there or not, but if, State Highway certainly likes it when we fill those positions,
Yeah.
because they don't have to worry about it. And we like to fill those positions because we're getting paid well to perform that function.
Yeah, and we were really just looking at the areas would save us money, and that one's not gonna save us a lot.
I met with Mike earlier today. This happens to be one of the agenda items. And the biggest challenge is the one individual isn't going to do it. We had a second person in line, but that individual backed out. And the big challenge that he's having is there's a certification required for the position. And he thinks it's through Department of Agriculture, but apparently they do their certification class annually, and it was last month. So we're actually trying to look into whether or not there's an alternative availability for the certification class, or whether or not we can ask that another class be opened up before next March. But right now, we just don't know. And I think he has a couple people who might have the certification, but the roles that they hold are leadership-type positions, and pulling them off that to do this would cripple the other part of the operation, so that didn't appear to be a feasible answer.
I'd just leave it open and advertise that as well.
If somebody happens along, great, and if not,
Huh?
if somebody happens along.
Yeah, right.
Right, I don't think that's gonna impact the budget.
Okay, so then, in summary, we're pausing 7 positions. We're pausing the associate planner, 2 correctional officers, the division chief of water wastewater services, the division chief of environmental operations, an MEO 1 or 2 at roads, and an MEO 3 at environmental operations.
True.
And that'll help HR, at least with direction, right?
Yep, that
Okay.
will help a lot.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you get a chance, I'd be interested to see that, the eight or so people you got up there to that one that you, what is it, administrative?
The admin specialist position, the admin specialist
Yeah,
job for the local
yeah,
board.
I just out of curiosity, just because we've had trouble filling some of these, I'd just be curious to see how we're doing and where they're coming from, and
Sure, yeah, we can pull that together, no problem.
how about the positions that have been asked for? Should we go through that, Pat, and, decide which ones we are
We
considering?
can, the directors aren't here because we weren't anticipating going through that today, so if you have any questions, that's one of the things, we were looking at maybe doing that on May 16th.
That's fine. If you-
But if you want to take
I was gonna say,
Uh,
they did make some changes
Right.
to that
Yeah, we did.
schedule,
Right.
so we can take a quick look at what it looks like now. Bear with me 1 second.
We already
So the ones
chose
that,
one paramedic out of 4, didn't we? That was one of the,
so the positions on the top are the ones that are still in, the positions on the bottom are the ones that you removed last week. So, the emergency services, that administrative assistant, it's really half a position, because we kind of had half a position in the budget. That's the combination of the police accountability, the detention center, and OES support. So we have half a position there. We left in 1 paramedic. We removed 3 of the 4 that were requested. The state's attorney, we took the prosecutor from a full-time to a part-time, so there's half of a prosecutor left Initiatives Manager and Economic and Tourism Development.
So with the sheriff's office, I had mentioned last week that we need to ask Sheriff Hickman to come in closed session to discuss what the plan is.
So we're
For that
having
deputy
all the
position.
departments come in 2 weeks, so.
And I've been thinking about the part-time prosecutor myself. I don't, in light of what the financial situation that we have, we may want to suggest to the state's attorney that he come back again next year, even though I know he presented this last year. Come back again next year. I don't see the case volume, and I asked this question of someone that knows. I don't think they're dealing with an enormous amount of new cases or caseloads.
According to our inmate population or not.
It doesn't appear to be that way, does it?
No.
So we might want to think about maybe asking him to
Reconsider that or.
push that off to next year. And we'll take a look at it then.
So do you want him to come in, or do you want us to just make that change?
I'm okay just making the change. I don't know if you all want him.
No, I'm okay with that.
I'm fine, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else on there?
Just some more justification from Sheriff Hickman.
Remind me what the Economic and Tourism Development Strategic Initiatives Manager is.
That used to,
I got you,
Okay, yep.
I got you. Thank you.
And in your books, under new positions are the memos that each of the department heads wrote requesting these positions, so you could also, there's written justification there, but we can certainly bring them all back in too.
Where would you like to go now, Pat?
Okay, well, let's take a look at where we are. Last
We
week,
keep cutting and the number keeps getting bigger. How does that happen?
Not supposed to work that way, but.
It's the new map.
okay, so, sorry, these are coming up portrait instead of landscape. So last week, so the first part of this were the cuts that we made the first budget work session. We took out $985,000, that was mostly in capital. Down here is what we did last week. We removed, or we transferred, I think actually this happened outside of a meeting. We have, the Fairly Well redevelopment actually is not gonna be able to be done in '23, so it got pushed into '24, so it was a '23 project that's coming over. But you can see in the personnel, we removed 3 paramedics, we took out half the prosecutor, we took out the administrative specialist at the detention center, and we increased the 911 fee. So the total, we reduced the expenses by 330, we increased the revenue by 194, so the net impact, was cutting the budget or reducing the deficit by about $530,000. So.
And just for those folks that might be listening, taking those 3 paramedics out, they were in a backup system for the current EMS program. This doesn't mean that this jeopardizes the response from the EMS.
the current, to reiterate, that's a really good point. The current staffing level in FY '23, right now, today, with paramedics and EMTs, we can fully staff 3 different locations 24/7.
Which was our goal.
Yep.
And by having 1 additional paramedic, which we have talked about, it's gonna put that safeguard there.
That's right.
Okay, so if we look at what that does to us, where we're starting from today, and do you guys have your binders? I can give you, I don't know if you'd rather look at paper or on the screen. Are you all okay seeing the
I like
screen?
looking at the
Yeah,
screen
I'm
myself,
good
but
with you.
Okay,
If you want your binder, just
let you
know.
be responsible for turning the pages and stuff, and I get all mad, so it's, at least I know I can easily follow you up there.
okay. All right, so the revenues, we added the 194 in, so those numbers, our revenues are going up, just a little over 3.4 million. up about 5.5 million. So you can see the increases by category there. Kent County Public Schools at the top there has that $2.4 million increase. Salaries have a $1.185 million increase. Benefits about a little over 400,000. You can see our capital number is going down now with the decreases we had. Our lease capital is going up just under 300,000. County allocations are going up over 1.8 million. Our operating is going up about $500,000. Our transfers are going down slightly, and our debt service is going up. So those are the areas where we have to look to try and find this money. And if we go down to look at the fund balance, our fund balance now, we are about a little over 6.1 million shy of balancing and having our 7.5% in reserves. So we still need to cut out a little over $6 million out of the budget to get there. We have to cut about $5.7 million out of the operating side and about $400,000 out of the non-recurring side. So I think we really need to look at the recurring side and attack that 5.7 million that's got to come out of there. So we can look at, we looked at the new positions. We went through the operating, and we do have some good news there. We found some things we can cut out. We can take a look at that. We can take a look at the allocations. I don't think in the whole time I've been here, I don't think I've ever seen the allocation funding rise at that level. So, there's some dollars there to be looked at.
Now, we haven't heard from all of them yet, right?
And you've heard from all of them that have requested an opportunity to
Okay.
talk to you, except for one, and that's DCS. Two. Who else? Extension office is coming in next week as well. Sorry, so two of them. So
DCS.
Delmarva Community
Community
Services, which is who runs DCT, Delmarva Community Transit, which is our transportation.
So maybe let's go to operating, since I can give you a little bit of good news there.
Pat, if I could interrupt you just for just a minute, I met with
Commissioner Breeding.
Travis Reading from Caroline County about the transportation. And we would really like to, or he and I both kind of agree, and that, there's always been a talk about these DCT buses, not, big buses, not very many people on them. But I'd like to ask Santa Grande if they'll come in, reach out to him. He was gonna send somebody else, I guess. I'd rather see, well, he can be somebody else, but when are we supposed to talk to them, I guess?
Next week.
Okay, then I'll save my comments until then, because I'm not talking about getting rid of them or anything, but there is a different direction that we haven't had a chance to talk to as a group, but I did talk to Travis about it, and he likes the idea, and maybe we could have Dawson come in here when we have that and see if we put that together, where we have maybe 2 or 3 smaller vehicles catering to these seniors and stuff. It maybe this isn't a year, but we'll lay it out and see what we can come up with. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So if there isn't an area that, I think operating, we identified about 270-some thousand we think we can take out, and there still are a couple of, let's take a look at the cuts first. Basically, what we did was we went in and did kind of linear tracking with, schedules have gotten small. Linear tracking with the operating costs to see what they've run for the last 2 and 3 years and projected them out with an inflationary increase. Most of the dollars that are coming out are in fuel, 90,000 roads. A lot of people, at the time they did the budgets, gas prices were going up. Now they've kind of leveled off, and I think most of the projections for this year are overstated in the budget. So we think we can save some money in the gasoline there. So
change that $6 million figure much, but it is what it is.
It is
Start,
what it
it's a
is.
start.
So it's a start. So, I mean, those are just things where we think people, you know, things were trending one way and the trending has changed, and we think we can pull back that 271,000 without adversely affecting anybody. The one thing included in there that was kind of a new request, and really the only one, was the training, where we did take one person out of the academy that we had talked about. And then if we look at the operating, where.
I apologize again, but when we were talking about those positions that we just, the ones that we put asterisks behind them, wonder what that adds up to? I mean, that's a
Yes.
savings, isn't it? Because they're already in the budget, and if we don't fill them, they're coming out of the budget.
Absolutely.
So-
So salaries and benefits for 7 positions, I mean, you're running the gambit here from an MEO to a.
I bet it's
division chief.
$700,000 easy.
Easily.
Yeah,
With benefits, yes.
yeah.
I'll cost it out for you, absolutely.
So if you if we do that, and then that 200 some you were just
We got $1
talking,
million.
we got $1 million we've just done away with.
Yeah. And you're committed to taking those out. On the operating side, if we look at, the stuff that we didn't take out, the new stuff that's being asked for, the largest increases are in, the detention center, HR, IT, the sheriff's office, environmental operations. And if you look, we have explanations of what all those are. I think in most cases, they're costs that we can't get away from. The detention center, you know, that's prisoner food and mental health and medical services. In HR, we have a couple of, you know, somewhat more discretionary items with the comp study and the HRIS software. So I'm not sure if you want to go down through these increases and look at any.
I'm okay with doing that.
I'm okay with taking that $100,000 for that compensation study out too. I've been through them and I was never impressed. Now, maybe we need it, but I'm not sure we need it this year.
All right, and then if we look at,
Look, that's just me now.
I agree.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just not the right year for it. Can you go back? Yeah.
So I mean, in the
This,
detention,
the detention center, medical health, is that burdensome on the county? And, I mean, that's what our share is? I mean, without grants or?
it's our current vendor's new contract price.
And that's just the increased cost
Yes,
of
that's
the
the
new
increase.
contract. We are
Right.
already probably paying, and
So we're talking about either bidding it out or piggybacking on another jurisdiction's recently bid out contract. But generally speaking, across the eastern shore, this is the trend, is that those contracts have shot up tremendously. So if we
that's
were,
what, it always bothered me a little bit. I mean, we have to supply all this medical into the jail when we got a hospital right here within a mile from it. I mean,
Well, and the only
but,
other thing,
look, I don't understand exactly how all of it works, so I guess it's somebody there to give out prescriptions, I mean, their medications and stuff like that, but boy, is it expensive.
I know, and it's all the more reason why we're looking into this regional detention center. Because if you were to combine the 3 counties that are interested, and maybe even, I mean, there's a couple, as you know, another 1 or 2 that might contemplate joining us, but it's possible, I don't know how probable, but it's possible we could even bring medical in-house. You know, instead of doing what all of us smaller counties are doing, and we're all contracting it out.
and one other thought maybe to just throw out there is that the health department was in here last week, and they are receiving a huge influx of money, and they had indicated if there were any other programs that were under their purview that they could,
They could help
the
with.
county with, to let them know. So I don't know if this
Possible.
falls under their purview, but we could have that conversation.
Yeah,
Even if it's in the form of a grant to help us offset this
Sure.
cost.
So we'll reach out to them.
And, you know, if we've frozen the hiring of a correctional officer, Why do we need that $7,000 there?
You won't unless that's to cover, because I do know that some of those people they brought in here,
Turnover would be the only reason. Same thing as if you lose, if you.
Yeah, but what's I mean, that's a $7,000 increase. What is the current budget?
So, yeah, that's true, that might be, I'll have to look and see, I'm not sure if they budgeted, based on what they're anticipating, I'll take a look at it.
That looks like to me, it might be the training of a new officer who has to go for whatever it is, 6
They don't have
weeks.
any new positions, so they're not asking for an additional CO, so I think it has to be related to turnover. So the question would be, is what's reasonable amount of turnover to look at that?
now I do know that a couple of those detention center guards that were when they came in here to introduce herself a week or two ago, a couple of them hadn't been to train, and now maybe there's already
That's
budget
true.
money in the budget for that
Right.
training. Maybe this is for the extra
This
ones.
is an increase for some
Yeah,
reason.
right, so,
We will ask the question.
You're right.
Find out, get an answer.
yeah.
Okay, okay, so I think that we've been through the detention center and HR, I guess you talked about the comp study.
Yeah, that information system for HR is necessary. They gotta have that.
I would advocate for that. It's time to join, current modern-day society, I think, when you're talking about HRIS.
Okay. So then if we look at information systems, the largest line in here is software subscriptions, and I know when Scott was in here, he talked about the cybersecurity, compliance. I'm not sure, again, we could bring him in if you want to hear more about it, but,
I think you'd be foolish if you didn't protect yourself
yeah, it's,
from what Scott presented.
my memory from what he presented was,
That's what I got out of it is we were,
Okay, so some of that training dollars for KCDC, I believe, is for new existing staff to attend training.
Like in service.
Yeah, in service, exactly.
But aren't they already doing that in the budget?
It just says additional training, so I think that we're still, we can ask them the question.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of legislation that's come down that's increasing
Yeah.
their training mandates, so we'll get an answer.
It's a
for
small
you.
item, but
Right.
7,000 adds up.
No, let's look
Wow.
at it, for sure.
Yeah.
We'll get an answer. In the sheriff's office, we did reduce the training in those cuts. We took from 2 people going to the academy to 1. Those other, the uniforms and the ammunition might come down. Well, I guess they won't come down because we still have the position in there, so I don't think there's anything else really in there.
The only thing I would ask Sheriff Hickman about is if they could do something else to take away that 7,400. I mean, I understand what he wants to do and why he wants to do it. But if they could either find a grant or maybe use Homeland Security money when it comes available.
Okay. Certainly ask that question. Environmental operations, the largest increase in here is in the yard waste, and Mid-Shore is simply not paying for it any longer. I don't know that there's anything that we can do to get away from that.
No, that was, they are required to provide certain things, and then there's optional things. So depending on the value of the commodities, when they're being sold from the recycling program at the end of the year, these optional things will now be negotiated instead of being automatically given.
And the fines at Nicholson, it might be a timing issue, but we know they're coming, so they've gone ahead and put them in here. So there really isn't much beside that there. Building maintenance, the custodial contract increased.
The custodial services, there was a problem with some of their performance. Has that corrected itself, or has?
Yeah, and this is the rate that was agreed upon in the initial contract, so there's nothing out of the ordinary about that, yep. But yes, the approach is now different, and there's more oversight.
Good.
Seems to be working out very well.
So I don't think that there's really too much in that. And now we're getting down to kind of some small dollars. The county commissioner's office, the one thing that's really taken that number up is the lobbyist, and obviously we've gotten great return from that.
And Pat, we had talked about that 19,000 is the remainder of the current contract, but if you want full year coverage, you want to continue the relationship, that should actually be 30. It's 30,000 for 1 year of a contract, so part of it was paid this fiscal year, part of it'll be paid next fiscal year, but if you want to continue the relationship ongoing, then it's a full year is a $30,000 contract.
Yeah, that's what they were charging a year. Now, this is the 19 that's left over from this year that we were in.
Right.
So do you want me to add that in?
I
think you should.
personally, I think
you
we
should.
ought to
I think
keep them,
that- I
and
think
we
we
ought
should
to see
definitely keep them for
another year. I mean, they-
what's coming down.
they paid for themselves, I mean, with what we got from the, so, not exactly what we were hoping for, but we did.
And then, other than that, the circuit court has a small increase of just under 16,000, but,
It's law.
yeah, I don't think there's anything we can do. And then we have decreases, so we've really kind of looked at the departments that have the major increases. So if we reduce the 100,000 from the comp study along with the 290 that we found, I guess we're up to 390, along with the 700,000 or so, we're up to about 1,190,000 cuts. Can look at allocations, if you wanna keep going, there's 1,000,004 in new requests there.
Just as well look at it, we're gonna have to look at all of it.
A lot of requests in the allocations.
Yeah. I can't ever remember it being quite this large. So, the largest one right at the top is the volunteer fire companies that are asking for a rate increase. Their increase, without the rate increase, their funding would go up about $40,000. So, it's about 530,000 of that is due to the rate increase. So if we don't change the rate, they would still see a $40,000 increase, and, or you can do something in between.
So they're asking for $570,000.
Yeah, they want to raise the
They're
rate
asking
by
for
50%.
530. It would already go up 40
Automatically, based on.
automatically with the rate it's got. But they're-
Every year, the dollars go up because it's based on a percentage.
Yeah, it's tied to the assessable base. So if we remove the rate request, that number would go down from 570 to 40. They'd still see an increase if we left the rate unchanged. If you want to entertain changing the rate to what they're asking for or somewhere in between, I can run numbers for you, but I guess I'm looking for a little guidance here.
To be perfectly candid, their letter requested basically an increase of the 50%, but what was stated when they came in was something very different. What they were verbally stating is an incremental increase in that percentage.
Which they get that anyhow, right?
The percentage doesn't change. They were still asking for a percentage increase.
But the
But-
dollars go up every year.
Every time
I mean, if
this-
you remember,
If the county assessment goes up, their contribution automatically
Right.
goes up, there's no questions asked.
And that's why it was set up that way, so that as the county grew, their funding would grow. It was meant so that, you know, as the county expanded,
Right.
their funding would expand. And it's gone up probably like somewhere between 1% and 3% a year.
And not every fire company gets the same amount.
There's a formula, there's an allocation formula, but
They-
they all.
If you have an ambulance,
You get extra.
That they came up with. I
Right.
think that should be, yeah, they came up,
Yeah, they
the
came up
Fire
with it.
Chiefs Association came up with the percentage.
And before I came, that formula, and from what I understood, it took great negotiation to arrive at that formula, and nobody's, ever talked about changing that, so. So I think it's
The
really.
one
just-
thing that I will say, that, their income has increased because over the last 28 or 30 years, that one thing that billing, for billing for the ambulance services and stuff is, and they can bill for fire service too, but, somebody brought that up one time. I don't know whether they ever pursued that or not. I don't know that they bill if the fire engine goes out or not, but they had talked about it, increasing it from just ambulances to fire service as well, that they could bill for their services. And, I don't know whether they ever pursued that, but there was a conversation about that one time. But I do know that billing for those ambulances, that's, we don't know how much it's been, but I understand it's been a pretty good amount.
Yeah, there's no way for us to know.
We don't, because we don't have anything to do with their billing. We used to, and then they did it on their own, and we don't know how much they take in or anything else. Look, they got, the argument is right.
You don't need to say it out loud.
Uh-huh,
A month,
a month,
a month.
wow.
I mean, the other source of revenue that the fire companies have is fundraising. They all, and some of them are, do more of it than others, but, they do have alternate ways to.
And this is an area, this billing, that I'd like to see the new emergency services director initiate for the county part of it, because it's something they used to do when
We're supposed to get 25% of it if we have a person on board.
that hasn't been happening.
We do receive monies from them,
From who?
from the rescue.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the county ambulance. If it's solely a county EMS unit, we should be billing too. I mean,
I don't think we're responding to any calls with our ambulance. We're using their,
I think sometimes we do.
okay, and we might be. It's my understanding we use it primarily to be on standby, like at the football games, at the high school, and events and stuff like that,
Plus that,
tea party.
that new ambulance that we bought last year with that COVID money, that was, anybody can borrow, any one of them can borrow it and use it, if they have problems with theirs, and
Right.
that was made clear.
I mean,
All right.
as much as they're worthy, this just might not be the year for it. We're about to hire a new director who maybe can get the answers to some of those questions. Maybe it's just not the year for a rate change.
I mean, we're staffing most of the ambulances, most of the volunteer ambulances right now with a driver and a paramedic. And yet, they're keeping the lion's share of the billing. I don't know if that's something that needs,
I just don't think that the Chiefs Association understands
I don't either.
the formula that the county goes by and how it does increase. It's gonna increase by $40,000.
correct,
Now, yeah, that's divided up between 7 companies,
right.
6 fire companies and the rescue squad, but,
But that happens almost every year too, John,
yeah, I know.
every year. I mean, they're, other than maybe, Board of Education, they're the only agency that we deal with that is guaranteed that they don't make, they'll get at least what they got last year and more. Now, it may not be to You know, it looks,
Is it
what they
usually-
done, was looked at that rate, and it was what it was set at them years ago, but
It's the assessment.
it's the assessment that drives it. And hopefully, if our economy grows here in the next couple of years, they're gonna see, that's when they'll notice something, so.
Yeah, we had assessments went up 3.2%. So again, it's only 1/3 of the county that gets reassessed every year, but that's what's driving this, so.
I'll tell you, the reason we're struggling is because it's a group of volunteers that does some great work, and nobody wants to offend them. And I'm at the top, I'm
We
right
can't do
there with
without
you.
'em either.
Can't do without 'em.
No.
But I do think they're not understanding how that rate works with the assessments, because their contribution does go up every year and has went up every year. Plus, we got over $2 million we're paying in EMTs and paramedics that we never had prior to
We paid for the LoSAP.
28 years ago.
That's another $150,000 for the LoSAP program. And
That's not even, yeah, that's
Yeah, and we
extra.
also do the Amos grant, which is another $300,000 that comes from the state, passes through us to the fire companies. So, we used to do, way back, there's so many moving pieces to this. Remember, we used to do the checks, and we used to take them to the fire companies because there are so many pieces of the funding, so that they would kind of know, you know, all the pieces together. When you add them together, it certainly looks more substantial than when you look at the
But when you take in the additional 2.2 or $5 million for that paramedic EMT service that the county has to pay for, the fact that the billing program was put in place and they make money out of that, a reasonable amount, I'm personally hesitant to change the rate. Now, I think we give it a year or two and see if our economy don't grow a little bit and maybe, I don't know. I mean, I think the rate was set like that, and it was law that it's gonna continue to grow every time the county grows.
And a 57% increase is huge.
Is
I mean,
huge.
If you were gonna
But-
consider,
But if you gave them some extra dollars this year, I'm just saying if, you're not locked into,
depends on how you change the law, we'd have to change
no,
the
no, I'm
law.
not, I'm talking about giving them a
Just an extra
separate
allocation.
allocation,
Okay.
not actually.
Instead of changing the rate, just give
Right.
them a one-time stipend or something for a year or so,
Just,
to see how.
Well, I wonder, maybe if you're thinking about that, is almost if you were to earmark, making up a number, but $100,000 for a grant program and let the fire companies apply. And in the grant application, you could even include facts and figures such as fund balance. Is it earmarked for anything? You know, are they buying a new piece of equipment? And that's what the need is, or, and that, because there might be some fire companies that could really use some extra dollars, and there could be some that don't need the extra money. So if you just increase and, you know, one-time allocation,
get my calculator out.
Yeah, I'm a little hesitant to increase that percentage. I mean, with everything that we're looking at here.
The other thing you might, yeah, if you take it out for now, you can come back and revisit it once you get down closer and see if there's extra dollars you can throw in there. And we've still got a long way to go in the other direction.
Yeah, we're not gonna get it if we leave $500,000 in there like that, I don't think, but. Why don't we take it for now, and then, like you say, we made no decisions, this is a pause, and we'll, you know, maybe we give them some, we're not done talking about it yet, but let's take it out for now, just for discussion purposes. We get to the bottom, we find out another big decision we gotta make, and I'm sure it's too early to make it now, but I mean, are we gonna raise taxes or lower taxes, or obviously, we're not gonna lower them, but,
So,
are we gonna raise taxes, what would that mean? So There's still some talk that has to take place, so for now, let's just take that 500 out.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because in order to be in compliance with the constant yield, we probably are gonna have to make that decision after our next meeting. I'll check and see if we can wait till the 16th, but there's a law in place that you have to advertise between 7 and 21 days before the hearing. So we are getting close to having to make that decision, so, and I'm gonna check, I hope we can wait until after the meeting of the 16th, but we're really,
coming.
it's coming, so
Yeah.
we really do need to kind of,
So I just got a text message from Alan Charber. And I'm not sure what he's trying to tell me in this text message, but I'd like to hear what he has to say about it.
Sure.
I mean, is it okay for me to call him and put him on speaker?
I don't care.
You mean just on your cell phone?
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping
No.
you.
If he'll answer.
Do we have a Teams meeting?
I wouldn't. if I was him.
I'm not sure.
I wouldn't if I was him.
I'm not sure.
Okay, okay. That's why I
break it up.
hesitated, because
Yeah.
you might be able to join us virtually.
Huh?
I said, if I was him, I'd say you're breaking up.
I can, Alan, you're on speaker, and we're sitting here at the table, and the meeting's being live streamed, so. I could not understand what your text message was actually trying to say.
Well, Commissioner Fithian was talking about we make a lot of money in the billing. We make, that's true, and just because we bill $500 doesn't mean we get that $500. And the fact that the rescue squad has 4 nursing homes in Chestertown in particular, if it's a Medicare patient, we get $100, whether it's a cardiac arrest call or it's a transport call. Doesn't matter, $100, that's it.
Alan?
Yes, sir.
What I was referring to is that the request was made that, because this rate was put in place 28 years ago, that there hasn't been an increase. Well, that's as far as the county goes, as far as the money that we've had to put out, there is an increase as the assessment increases. You've got some modest increases. I'm not saying it's enough, but there has been modest increases. It goes up, it can't help but go up one year after, to the other, because it's in law and it's based on the assessments. But then we've inherited, and we did it because we wanted to do it and we thought it was the right thing. We've inherited over $2 million in the paramedic and EMT service that is every year. And then the fact that the billing process was put in place during that 28 years, and whatever you've gained, and I'm not saying you get rich out of it, and I don't know how. Obviously, there's money you take in and there's expenses, and you end up with a certain amount. But it was an increase that's taken place in the last. So there has been some increases to the amount of money that the stations have received. Obviously, maybe it hasn't kept up with what it costs for some equipment and stuff, but it's not like nothing has happened for 28 years, because if you follow me, and look, I
understand that. I understand that very much.
Yeah.
I have the numbers that, going back to at least 2016. So in 2016, the allocation was roughly 90,000. And in 2024, it's scheduled to be, without changing the percentage, about 1.028 million. So it's gone up about 1.1 million since 2016. I mean, excuse me, it's gone up over $100,000, not a million. I think I said a million.
Right. And that, but with us, it's to emergency services, it's going up over $2 million because we're taking on paying for the paramedics and the EMTs, and we want to do that. We think it's the right thing to do. I'm not complaining. I'm just showing how when we, through our eyes, the cost of 911 and stuff has increased. But we're hoping, and look, we haven't made a decision one way or the other how we're gonna handle this yet, because as you also probably heard me say, you're a great group of people that we can't do without, so we understand, and that's probably why we're giving it as much a consideration as we are, is because it is a hard group to replace, and we certainly wanna do our part. So we're in the talking stage now, so, we haven't made any decisions, and we're gonna do the very best we can, but on top of that, I'm gonna tell you, because of some state mandates and stuff, if you had picked a worse year to talk to us about this, I don't know what year it would have been, because this is the worst one that, in my time, because of some of the state mandates, but don't count us out, we're still gonna continue to discuss this. We've got a lot of cuts to make, and none of them are gonna be good.
Well, the only thing I wanted to say was, we're not, the fire companies that have ambulances are not getting rich from the billing company, especially the rescue squad, because we have over $200,000 in employee payment and benefits that we are forking out from the billing money.
Right.
Plus part of the money that we get from the county. But none of the volunteer companies are getting rich because of the billing. By the time they get their supplies and new ambulances and equipment for their personnel, they're just above water, if that. So, I mean.
And we understand that nobody's
If the billing didn't come along, we'd all be underwater.
That's exactly right. And we're not saying anybody's getting rich, and we understand what you're up against, but
Okay.
don't count us out. And one other thing, I'm sure you can answer this question. Wasn't there some talk about billing for the fire calls?
I think there's a couple companies that bill for rescue calls, like accidents. Again, they bill like $300, and they make it $50, they may get $175.
I got you.
I think Chestertown and Galena are the only two that do that right now. Fire calls, I don't know of any company in the county that charges for house fires. I don't think they do that. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm just trying to be honest with you.
No, I hear you. I appreciate that. And you got my questions answered, and I hope we answered some of yours, but.
So Alan, you're obviously watching this, I guess, live stream.
Yes, sir, I was.
Can you see the chart?
If I go off of the live stream and go on the agenda, I can see it, yes.
Okay, so it looks like the increase that the Fire Chiefs Association has asked for us to consider, the increase would be $570,000, almost $571,000. That's a 57.8% increase. That's pretty hefty, especially in these tough times.
I agree.
The only thing I can tell you is that, all three of us sitting up here recognize how important the work is that you all do. And, at some point, we're gonna have to make a decision, and we're gonna try to do it in the best way possible that will hopefully be helpful. But you've gotta know that it can't be anywhere close to 571,000.
Right.
I know, I want you to ask what you think you need, but I don't think we can do that, not even close to that. But we'll do what we can for you.
Appreciate that, and that's all we can ask, honestly.
Okay. All right, well, thanks for taking the
Thanks,
call,
Al.
and I appreciate you staying involved.
Okay, thanks, John.
Okay.
Thanks, Al.
So I think we're just gonna push this off closer to the end. Can we do that, or?
We're getting close to the end. We
Oh,
we're
okay.
Well, I'd
So-
say over the next,
So let me ask this question, and you're the financial person. Inflation's 7%. So what does 7% look like in dollars?
on them.
Over last year's
Shoot.
allocation?
Yeah, I
It
guess.
would double,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking it would double the 40, I think it's probably, but let me do the math. Hold on a second. What is it, 1.5?
Is it 500?
Yeah, it would be about $69,000 over last year's allocation,
7% on $1 million, oh, I'm sorry, I'm
On
taking on the wrong number.
the 987. Uh-huh.
And I mean, if you wanted to, to make an overarching decision too, like if you want to know what it would be like for all the agencies that are asking for additional dollars to get an inflationary increase, like, I mean, if you want me to run some numbers before we come back next time, if you want to take a clean, rather than evaluating them one at a time, if you want to know what an inflationary, there are probably the first, obviously the health department, we can't do
We're
anything.
mandated there.
We can, but we have Upper Shore that has a healthy request, we have the public library that has a healthy request. We have some requests that are brand new. One of the things in hard times that we've said, as hard as it is this just isn't the year for new requests. You know, we're struggling to fund what we have, so I don't know if you wanna take.
That's the take I would want to take.
That's
I
absolutely.
mean, I've looked at this stuff already, and there's, I think, about 3 of them that are new requests.
So,
And,
so maybe,
you know, this isn't the right year, as much as we'd like to help, but.
is everybody
I
comfortable
am.
with that?
Didn't we always say that, I mean, the library, don't their people get the same percentage? Because we're not,
It's not automatic, but that's generally what you
what,
funded.
what we give to our employees.
Yep.
And that's, what's that, a 6% increase they're asking for?
Yeah. that
But
would
they
be-
also have other asks as well.
Yeah, they have 2 new part-time positions. But I think if you wanted to look at it in that frame of
I
reference.
will say that we've been very generous to the library in years past, because we've done a lot of capital work and stuff out there. They,
I think,
you know, if they have to take a year off, that won't be a big, other than the salaries, we could do whatever we do, but,
right, I mean, Chesapeake College, we can't do anything with. The Humane Society has a 17% increase requested. So a lot of, sorry.
To be crystal clear, for the volunteer fire companies, are, for the purposes of next week's documents, are we holding them at the automatic increase? That's kind of what I heard you say, Commissioner Fithian, and I'm not sure about you, Commissioner Price.
Or
well, I think John said it
I
better
think-
than I did. We're not gonna be able to do what they're asking, but we're not ruling out doing something.
So,
Okay, so for
And
the
I-
purposes of the worksheets next session, what do you
I
want
think-
that number to say?
I think what I'd like to see is see them get their normal allocation that they're due with whatever increase is there.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe think about 7% of last year's dollars
on top of that,
on top of that.
Now, do you
As a,
mean,
as a one-time,
but do you mean 7% in
a-
addition to the 40,000? Or do you mean
just a
Well,
7%.
the
It's-
combination of the two equals
you
7%?
take last year's number, which is 987.
Yep,
Take 7% of that.
yep. They're automatically getting
They're
40,000.
automatically getting 40.
Which is roughly 3%.
So that's gonna give them an extra $109,000.
So you're talking about the 7% in addition to the 40,000?
So that'll be like closer to 10 or 11%.
Or do you mean 7% and then they're already getting,
Approximately 3.
right, they're, yeah. So are you talking about in addition or
In total.
If you're
In
already getting 3%, is that what it is, 3%?
It's correct. The assessable base increase was somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.2, I think. So, board,
It's about 77% of last year's budget would be roughly
I would
$70,000.
like to see them,
Okay.
with the number that they're getting this year, totaling 7% total for the inflation cost.
and, okay,
Okay, so total,
okay, so
so the automatic 40,000, and then it would be about another 30,000 as a one-time
that.
allocation.
Yeah.
so, and I guess my
Okay.
comment then was, is do we wanna take that approach just to see where it would get us dollar-wise with all of the requests? If you were to say, all the ones that we can touch, do you wanna see what they would look like at an inflationary increase and see what that would take out? Or do you wanna go through them one at a time and evaluate them?
I think, personally, I think we can go through them one at a time, because some of them deserve more than 7%.
Yeah,
Well, I think they all deserve more than 7%, but I think
Yeah.
that we've given some of them, the one underneath there, I think that we've kind of been,
I'd like to see
personally, I
that
think
one
we've been,
stay untouched
I think we've
myself.
been lagging on that one
I think-
personally.
I think the
I
county
think they've
has
been
been
the
lagging a long time.
stepchild for a lot of years, and
And Andy said it, but I'll reinforce it, I think the other counties have been carrying us on this.
So, yeah.
Okay, so 7% on the fire companies.
And we'll just see what this looks like. We might have to,
Absolutely.
we
Oh,
might
no,
have to cut it
nothing's ever-
again.
We're gonna go back through them, okay, and leave, Upper Shore alone. Public library,
So Alan, if you're listening, we've done the best we can for now. That could still change.
library,
that's true.
they're requesting 25.5%. And
And in the salary, it's a 6% increase, but they've also added 2 new part-time positions.
Do they have air health insurance?
yes,
Well, yes
They
and no,
have- they
they
have
have
through
their
the-
own, but it's the same as
it's
ours.
through legit, yeah.
So has it gone up to where it's gonna cost them almost 10,000 more dollars?
That's what their numbers say, I can talk to Arnessa about that, but yeah.
I will say,
It's hard to tell, cause we get the
Right.
refund.
we're lucky enough to get a refund. Not every organization that's a member of Legit Health gets a refund, but Kent County Government and Kent County Public Library are 2 of the ones that recurringly get very healthy refunds. And, I mean, I don't know if they've included that refund anywhere in here. I mean, they can't count on it, it's not a given, but I don't think they've ever not received it.
So these 2 new part-time positions, is that because they're opening up a new library in Rock Hall? Is that what I understood?
That's all,
There's already one there.
there's all.
But I mean, aren't they moving to another
Well, I
location?
think that's still up, I think that's still up in the air, Sheriff, where they're going.
That's way up in the air, because they'd be here asking us to buy them a building, and they're,
I mean, I like,
I think they are anticipating buying a building, and I don't know whether the additional operating is already included in this budget or not. I mean, they're looking, I know, at some state funding for a grant to potentially buy a building, but then they would definitely need money from the county, and I don't know if all or any of that is included in this ask.
you know, we're freezing county jobs temporarily.
So her comment in the
I
letter.
agree, right.
You know, I'd rather see people get a pay increase and be a little happier
I would too.
and being able to pay their bills.
Yeah, well, I
And to
think
hire new
that's
people.
that's key to anything, is
So
to
the
pay the
comment that
bills.
she has in her letter was, we need to hire additional staff to maintain the quality of our services and expand our offerings to meet the needs of our community. So that's,
With no disrespect, that's,
Nice, not necessary.
it's
I would
not,
tell you, I would take everything away.
Necessity versus.
it's nice, but
Except-
maybe not necessary in a year when things are so tough.
I'd cut it all out of that library, except the salary increase, and then they'd get the same as we get.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'm good with that, and
A flat,
Because fellas, I'm gonna tell you, we've spent some money with the library. They really have very little to complain about.
And they do a good job.
Yeah, no question about it, absolutely.
This is just not a good year for that.
And they got a fund balance there that they could, you know, something, that's 51,000 or,
51.5.
yeah. That if,
Well, the 51.5 is the amount of fund balance that they used last year that they don't want to use this year that they want us to pick up. So it's the increase in, so last year
So
they.
what is their current fund balance?
Um,
As you know, I don't like these fund balances. She's not looking.
So, I don't think she has it in here, but I can double check it.
I like what Ronnie suggested, you know, we want people to get pay increases, the current employees. But I don't think we should approve those two part-time positions for now.
Okay.
If it becomes a hardship, they can come in and talk.
I don't see it in there, I just glanced through the document.
I didn't see it either. Okay, so we'll make that change. The rebuilding together.
Bad year,
Not a
in
good
my
year.
opinion.
yeah, I'm with you.
Chesapeake College, there's nothing we can do there. Humane Society,
Well, I guess the base minimum wage is gonna have to go to $15 an hour, correct? I mean, they've fast-tracked that.
For now, give them half of it and we'll see, talk about it again.
Cut in half.
all right. Extension office, they're asking to increase the horticulture education position from .2 to .5. And they're asking for 6.5% in salary increases.
Is she coming in next week?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes, Paul is coming in next week.
I mean, they've been asking, I think, for this position for a number of years now, haven't they, Ronnie? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That next one, you can take all of that, as far as I'm concerned.
Not a good year.
Nope.
How about
And
the-
this 20,000, I guess that's, I mean, that's what Cecil, Kent, and Queen Anne's has, that's basically our dues to the Upper Shore Regional Council.
Yeah,
You don't
it's
wanna,
not-
it's hard to
not
cut
really-
them,
The 12,000 is, the 20,000 is simply moving from one department to another. So it's
Yeah,
not
it's not
actually
an
an
increase.
increase. And
okay.
it's supposed to be a 3-year program, and this is year 3 of
So
3.
our dues are kinda like still $12,000.
Yep, yep.
But that's
That's
an agency that gave us $10 million last year for the 3 counties. Pretty hard not to be a part of that.
Yeah. And it's
Where are they this year?
I think it's mandated that we give 10, but we've traditionally given, all the counties have traditionally given 2 more.
Town of Galena?
I think we should do that.
And something to keep in mind with this one is this is a one-time ask.
The trail.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
For the
I think-
design, I mean, I think it's gonna promote the economic development,
And
or
look,
potentially.
And
helping
they're paying,
the
they're
northern part of
putting
town.
up as much as we are.
They are.
Yeah.
Okay, Kent Center, they're asking for $18,567 in new money, but in that $98,000 that they're asking for, last year, for the first time, they asked for $40,000 to rehab some of the residential homes. So they're asking for it again this year. It's not an increase, but I think it wasn't clear that it was gonna be a continuing program last year when they asked for it. So built into there is 18,000 for an increase in operating, and then another 40,000 for,
On top of that,
to rehab homes, similar to what we gave them last year. But like I said, it was kind of like the Galena project, where we weren't sure it was going to be a continuing ask every year for $40,000 to rehab the residential homes. So it's not really their operating expenses.
I personally think we ought to take a year off of them and just leave it flat funding and then we'll revisit it, because we did give them additional 40,000 last year for those capital projects. And that's to take care of those homes that they have. that-
Put in the ramps, do some
Yeah,
some
that kind of stuff.
renovations. So you're saying
that's just me.
keep in the salary, but take out the 40,000.
Yeah, I don't think we need to take that, that's not gonna deter, that isn't gonna affect those people that we're dealing with.
That was never intended to be a recurring expense, but
No.
they've asked for it 2 years in a row, so.
So I don't wanna hold them harmless, but I don't, I mean, I'll give them their, what, some of it, but I don't wanna, I don't think we should give that 40,000 for more,
We'll take care of the salaries, benefits, and general operations.
yeah.
18.
Okay, Delmarva Community Services, are they
18.
coming in next week?
They're coming in next week.
Okay, so I don't know if you wanna talk about that one or wait until you hear from them?
See, last year, that 95,465 is what they're asking for this year, right?
Yes.
Correct.
And last year, they were cut, I guess that's what they were getting, and last year, they were cut down to 81, but I don't wanna give them, I don't wanna say anything until we have a conversation with them, because we'd like to restructure that a little bit and get their 2 cents as to whether they think we can accomplish it or not.
Okay, soil conservation, theirs is all tied to salaries and benefits. They're asking for 6.3, which is essentially what we have in for us, so it's kind of consistent with what we're doing.
Is that what you've put in placeholder in theirs? Is
Placeholder is
6%?
6%. And that's based on what surrounding jurisdictions are doing, so.
That's St. Martin's Administrative, we talked about that, and they're asking for a $10,000 increase. Maybe we cut it down to 5,000, make it 15 instead of 20. I mean, that's one group that's the only group outside of Kent County, I guess, that we fund.
But they
they're-
serve Kent County
they're-
residents.
They do a lot of good work.
It's not a big dollar item, but it's a huge percentage. They're doubling their request.
Yeah,
So everybody okay with 15?
you got it, you all
Yes.
right with so they'll get 15 instead of 10.
Turner's Creek Structure Assessment. This keeps spinning thoughts in it.
I don't think we should spend $10,000 on that.
It breaks my heart to say this, but I just don't think that, number one, if we spend the 10,000 and then we get the numbers and it comes up to
That
a
means you're
$2
gonna
million
spend more.
project, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean,
The tip of the
That
iceberg.
place, I mean, we all know what shape it's in.
I'd love to see
I mean,
it
if-
saved, I really would, but
Yeah.
I just,
would too,
again,
but-
this is a tough year.
Yeah.
And it's not, I mean, we keep saying it's a tough year. Unfortunately, these school systems, the way I see it, it's gonna be tougher next year and the year after and the year after. It's not gonna get easier, not with Kern.
So assuming we're not moving forward with a study, we will have to spend about, it's just under $60,000 on the site, but that could also be contingency.
Spend what?
60,000, it's like 58,600.
That's because the steel beams were
That,
put up.
that's if we take the building down.
Right, right. So you'll have to spend that money on something in that area, right there at that part of the park.
I'd rather do that than.
But
blow
we,
this
that can be
10,000.
contingency
And
when there's a plan.
We probably ought to reach out and let them know that before they go to too much trouble.
Yeah.
Because
I
that,
know he was looking for grants.
yeah, that's a lot of
I
ifs
mean,
there,
look,
but
if they can find private funding to save that building, I'd be all for it.
Yeah, me too.
I'd be all for it. Or they can
County
do
would
it.
be on the hook for a lot of it,
Well, I'm just,
a pretty big percentage anyway, so.
Okay. The YMCA is asking us for $7,500 for a new program. We've never provided them with funding in the past either.
Bad year.
I hear you,
Bad year.
yeah.
Okay. Delmarva Craft, this was a new program for us last year. They want to expand the service to 42 hours a week, additional trips. And they're going to operate Friday through Sunday from the end of May through the middle of October. So they're asking for an additional $5,000.
Is
I'd
that-
flat fund, I'd give them what they got last year. if we find out they play an integral part in this transportation thing that we're talking about, maybe we'll reconsider, but for now, I just hold them to
I'd
what
say
we
that's
give them
I
last year.
would keep the two separate,
Yeah,
because they are very different missions. I mean, this literally is the shuttle.
listen, they can
that's
say
doing-
what they want, but that's basically replacing the trolleys that the town used to have.
This is
in
a
Rock Hall.
tremendous benefit to the town of Rock Hall.
They're.
Unquestionably.
All it's doing is picking up what they themselves decided to get rid of, which was the trolley service that. So I would just hold them at what we gave them last year.
Everybody good with that?
Mosquito control is the health department's gonna pay for
Correct.
that.
We're gonna
Yep.
take that out.
Yeah, you
Comes
knock
out.
it out. You didn't forget that, did you?
He was quick on the draw with that one.
They're also gonna pay the rent for $165,000.
Okay, so Imagination Library, this is, the Judy Center has kind of reduced funding, and I guess Imagination Library wants to pick it up. So they're asking for an additional $4,000.
Where is the Imagination Library?
You gotta just make out it's there. I don't have a clue where that.
So where
It's
the
not-
books come from.
Yeah, it's the Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
Right, I knew that, but I mean,
Yeah.
doesn't all of our schools, all the schools
So
have libraries?
this is, it's not tied to schools, and I
Right.
think a lot of them are the really young children. And so I don't know physically where these books are coming in and being stored, but then, or I don't know if they are, or if.
They go to the homes.
Yeah, but directly from where? Do they come to Kent County and we distribute, or are they just
They sign
mailed?
up.
They go straight.
I think they do too. I think they do
Straight to
too.
the house.
They
Whoever
sign up
signs
for it,
up
right?
for it.
Yep,
They sign
The
it.
families sign up for it, and then they send the
Right.
books to the house.
They send the books to the family's home.
yep.
So they're saying 480 children are enrolled in this program at $25 a child.
Mhm.
So they wanna,
Well, it's not a big ticket item, and if the kids are reading the books, I'd say it's
No, it's
probably
one of
worth
the
every
better
dime.
things we do,
Yeah,
probably.
exactly. Yep.
Leave, I go along with leaving that extra
No,
$1,000.
yeah.
okay, CASA, they're looking for a $1,000 increase.
Can you explain that to me? Whose budget is that in? Is that in the court's budget?
CASA is an agency of its own, and I
Or they-
can't tell
they're
you
not a
what.
county agency,
No.
right?
No. So let's see.
There was a time when they didn't get anything from us. We didn't fund them at all.
So CASA of the Midshore remains committed to providing court-appointed special advocate, that's the CASA, to every child under the protection of Kent County Circuit Court due to abuse, neglect, or abandonment. Funding from the Kent County Commissioners help us meet that goal. In fiscal year '22, Kent County children represented 12% of the children served in the four-county region. And they've been asking year over year for this to be increased because of the percentage of the clientele coming from Kent County.
It doesn't matter to me whether we give them 1,000 or just keep it flat, doesn't,
It's
I mean,
basically an inflationary increase of 7%, so.
I'm okay with giving them.
Yeah,
So, I
let's-
mean, they provide a good service. when the
Let's
child
leave it
needs
there.
help.
Let's leave it there.
Okay, and so now we are coming into the agencies that have not requested any additional funding. So
What's the payment in lieu?
Payment in lieu is, there's a law on the books
Oh,
from the
that,
1960s.
okay, never mind.
And you have to give, we
I
give
know what it is.
$3,576 to the towns. They carve it up, and we can't stop paying it because it's on the books, so.
What did she just say?
It's mandated in annotated code,
What is?
and that there's $3,576 that's mandated in annotated
That
code.
payment in lieu.
And that was some
It's
payment,
something to do with bank fees. Way
And
back in the.
it was like 1980 or something, and
60s,
yeah, it has to stay the exact same amount.
Yeah,
So,
forever, so.
that, yeah,
Shouldn't that be cleaned up?
well, you
We
could,
can't clean
you
it
can
up.
go to the General Assembly next year and advocate for them to clean it up. I know how much you like crossing the bridge.
It's not our law.
Yeah,
Okay.
all mean, we agree wholeheartedly.
So the rest of these agencies.
$3,500 isn't enough for me to go
It
to
might not be
Annapolis.
enough now.
So the rest of these agencies have requested no additional funding or are showing decreases. So here's a list of all the agencies that are not asking for additional funding. So,
And the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene is mandated.
yeah, and the assessment office is mandated. And we're estimating that based on last year's costs, because they haven't sent us the bill yet. But you can see all those, and then we have a couple agencies that are actually reducing their funding. Museums of Kent County, Kent Goes Purple, Midshore, and the Cultural Alliance. So I think you've gone through everybody that was asking for new dollars. So we can make those changes. I'm not sure what time you guys wanna run till. I know you have a meeting at 6 o'clock tonight. It's 5:15. You wanna?
Call it here.
Or you've had enough?
What else you got on your mind?
We can go back to the front and look. I mean, we can talk about the public schools.
I think we
can-
should hit the schools for the next 15
Next
minutes.
15 minutes?
Only because Dr. Couch is here and,
It's advertised, so we're here.
huh?
I said, you advertised it, so that's why we're here.
That doesn't mean it's always gonna happen that way though.
So, we can go
But
back
I-
and look at the overview and then,
But I think we ought to try to provide them with a reasonable answer so they can work their magic at some point, hopefully.
so what you're looking at is kind of where places we have to take the dollars out of. You can see the dollar request on Kent County Public Schools is on the top there. I would say, we think we took maybe $1 million out of this. We've still got a really long way to go.
If we took $1 million out of that, how
Before we
much
start-
do we, how far in the hole are we still?
So we need to.
Because it don't, unless we go back and really make some drastic cuts, there's, now we're talking about tax increases.
Right, so we need to take $5.7 million out of the operating side, which is kind of what we were looking at today. So we took, if we get rid of all those positions you talked about, and I put in the, operating cuts that we found, plus the $100,000 for the comp study, we'd be looking at just under $1.2 million. So then we'd be down to $4.5 million that we have to take out of this. I was not keeping a running tally, but we took a significant amount out of the allocations. I mean, the fire.
They're not looking amused, Pat.
The fire companies would be $500,000, so that would get us down to 4. And I'm not sure, again, I can total up what you took out, but there was $100,000 in rebuilding together, 25 in the Humane Society. There might be another couple $100,000 we took out of the allocation side. So I think we probably are still looking at $3.5 million that's gotta come out of this.
Now, where in the hell is $3.5 million coming from?
Well, salaries and benefits, Kent County Public Schools, sorry. Those are the areas it's gotta come from. So again,
All right. I guess somebody's got to bring it up. So, the maintenance of effort, we still don't know what the real number is.
well, we have the preliminary number, it's $719,000.
I think Dr. Cass told us it was $700 and some thousand that we're by law, we have to do. Is that right, isn't that right, Dr. Cass?
Final numbers will be issued.
You know, and sometime, I don't, we heard sometime this month, but last month.
Last
I don't
month,
know.
yeah.
I don't know if that's the number they gave us.
Do we know when we might have a solid number?
Not really. I mean, like I said, I thought we were gonna hear at the end of last month, but we didn't.
Well, you know, and you've heard this before, the maintenance of You want to come on up front so we don't have to talk so far away?
We don't want to be accused of yelling.
No. Thank you.
No problem.
And I think the folks that are listening can probably hear better too with you
Okay, no
at the
problem.
microphone. But, you know, the way the maintenance of effort is set up, from what I understand, that's something that reoccurs, never goes down. And I think Commissioner Fithian talked about it before. And that's all well and good. But I think this is really the reason why so many times folks are, in our positions, are very hesitant in increasing that maintenance of effort. Because you're kind of locked in. And we currently, right now, we have no clear picture what the blueprint's gonna look like next year, other than we suspect that someone might apply some common sense and maybe rework things a little bit to make it a little more affordable financially for all counties in Maryland. So I almost feel like we're kind of put in a position where we're afraid to go beyond the maintenance of effort because of what could hurt us down the road. Now, having said that, you got the maintenance of effort of $700 and some thousand, $719, right? And then you've got the $250,000 that everyone here together, both groups, tried to bring back to Kent County, so that's $250 there on top of the $719.
The way that it was written into law, we're pretty sure that the 250 can be included into the 719.
Without increasing the maintenance of effort.
Right.
So that 250 you're talking about can be added in and it won't count
Yep,
towards maintenance of
Right, it
effort.
can go toward the 700 plus.
And it doesn't lock you in next year.
For that 250, no.
And then we have the position that kind of didn't work out too well, of, what is it, 125,000?
Ish, yeah.
For the implementation.
We don't have the final
coordinator.
numbers on that yet, but.
So Pat, are you doing some numbers?
I'm
Or you
trying
doing
to get,
something
I'm
else?
trying to get the allocation number for you.
And I have to assume that when we get the final MOE calculation from MSDE, they're gonna include whatever the final number is for that Kerwin implementation coordinator. Because I don't believe it is right now.
What was the maintenance of effort last year, 500?
No, it's $15 above. The amount that you provided to the school system above the year before was $15.
Yeah, but I mean, the
It
MOE,
wasn't $15 per student, it was $15.
it was 515.
No, it was $15.
The funding was flat virtually last year. There was no, we didn't give them any additional dollars.
You gave us $15, that's it, less than 115. We
You
didn't-
spend all, okay.
We spent it all, yeah, we spent all $15. Gave met the increases for our employees, didn't come and ask for anything.
And was the state funding up last year, or was it flat?
It was a little bit up, but not much.
And you are actually losing state money this year, right?
Yes,
Well, I think net, you're increasing, but
but but,
so much of it's committed in certain
right.
categories.
It's committed to, it's not flexible, it's committed to certain programs. It goes to, concentration of poverty, those particular programs that we don't have control over. So we have mandated salary increases that we have to do. We have the $15 minimum wage. We cut our budget $1.6 million. We used $1.8 million fund balance, which is not great because what happens is we're using non-recurring funds to fund recurring costs.
Right.
So we cut our budget. We're going to soon be, underwater.
Is there
We can't keep doing that.
Is there any amount of that fund balance that you're comfortable using?
I mean, we're gonna have to use some, we know that, but I can't, if the thought is that we're gonna use all of it, then I can't, that is not a fiscally responsible
Right.
thing for us to do. It's not, because then what I'm gonna have to do in '25, let's just say for all
Well, you gotta add that,
let's- yeah.
whatever you use, that's gotta be your
I gotta-
starting point.
Then I have to cut, $1.6 million or 2 million or whatever that amount is. I'm gonna have to cut that out of '25. And, it's becoming more and more difficult. Now, my meeting with the governor's office and with, Secretary Grady went very well. And they indicated that they want to put together a work group. And so I'm hoping that we can get that organized for FY '25. But no help's gonna come for FY '24. So, if the answer is all we get maintenance of effort and that's it, then we are in a world of hurt because I have no funding to provide my salary increases for the teachers. It's going to effectively affect my recruitment, retention. It's going to be devastating to us.
Well, on the flip side of that, the only way that we could fund what you're asking for is going to be to raise taxes, which, what the way, if I do my math correctly, somewhere around 7 cents, or just over 7 cents per hundred. And with, you're asking for raises for your teachers, and I'm not saying they don't deserve it. I'm sure I know they do, and the
Well, it's
administration.
mandated, yeah.
Well, and there's that. But what's not mandated is the people that are working hard in this county that aren't gonna get the raises this year. And then they're gonna have to pay higher taxes on top of the 7% inflation. I mean, it troubles me to have to think that that's what we're gonna have to do. And then on the other side of that, raising taxes is not gonna spur economic development in this county. It's just not. We're already, second or third highest on the shore. And so that's where, well, at least where I think that all three of us are coming from, is trying to figure out this
If anybody raises taxes
balance.
at
That's
this
all.
table, you're doing it without me.
Well, and I'd like to agree, say the same thing, Sheriff, exactly.
I mean, as much
But
as
that's
I-
what I'm saying, we gotta try to figure, hopefully we can figure this out, and we're glad you're here. So you can, if you have a magic wand, you can wave that.
Well, like I said, we didn't come to the county last year because we knew we had to meet the first installment of salary increases, minimum wage. We did it with what we had, and we made cuts last year. We're proposing to take another $1.6 million out of our budget for FY '24. We tried to be responsible as we can, but that still leaves the state mandates that we have to implement, that we have no, we can't raise revenue. We're beholden to whatever we get from
We understand that.
local and state.
And that, just going back to the Kerwin, how fair is that to say, okay, these county workers deserve a raise, and you're gonna get it all, and then the rest of the county workers don't get anything because we gotta give it all to one specific group? It just,
Right.
this is.
I do think it's showing how we gotta grow our economy a little bit somehow too. I think that's gonna, if we don't like raising taxes, growing the economy is kind of something that should have been going on before, but and it's imperative that we get started on it somehow.
And I'm shaking a lot of trees. I mean, I have a meeting on Thursday this week with State Superintendent Chaudhary and also with
Dr.
Rachel
Childs,
Heiss.
We appreciate what you're doing, no
I
question
mean,
about that.
I'm doing my best to try to get some attention to the fact that we are a small county and the funding is not there for what we have to do. I will say that every superintendent that I'm aware of is struggling and has had to go locally to their counties for more funding. I think they're probably out of the 24 jurisdictions, maybe 2 have not asked for an increase, just because it's not possible.
Which means that many groups of county commissioners are struggling to
Right.
figure this stuff out, just
Right.
like we are.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's what's got this summer study idea coming up, because they're just hearing it all over now, and we know damn well nobody's gonna say, I made a mistake, so we gotta,
Well,
that's not gonna
what I
happen.
heard from the governor's office, when I spoke with them last week, was that for the next coming session, that they're going to be, let me see if I can use the exact wording, there will be judicial, legislation put in place to make some changes to Kerwin recommendations and mandates. So what that means in the greater scheme of
But
things.
in all honesty, isn't that a heck of a thing for people like us
Yeah.
and yourself to have to figure out what all that means?
Yeah.
And we don't know if it means anything.
It
Right.
could mean more.
It could mean, you never know. I
Right.
mean, the only thing we feel good about is the fact that people are starting to pay attention now.
Right, they are.
Because it's something that, it's a bigger deal than everybody imagined in the
Right.
beginning.
Right.
So,
And it's even harder for smaller jurisdictions, for sure.
but when you mention having to use your fund balance, that $2 million fund balance, I mean, if we were to say just use it, we're the ones gotta make it up.
Well.
At the next year, we know.
Can though, that's the problem. I mean, I hate to interrupt, but if you were to tell us to do that,
We're just talking now.
yeah.
This ain't
I
said.
know, and I'm just saying, if you were to tell us to do that, I don't think you will be able to make up that difference. I mean, in all honesty, I mean, you're not gonna have an extra 2 million that's gonna fly out of the air from some other place. So it's gonna be on our backs to then figure it out and make those cuts. And I worry for what that means for us moving forward. I mean, we did the temporary fix for this year. If I were to do that again, then that would have meant I would have to cut 4 million out in FY '25, which is completely irresponsible. I mean, you're struggling with cutting $1.2 million out of your budget. Well, it's the same thing for us. I can't see us doing that moving forward. It's just, it's hard for me to see that. I mean, I realize I'm going to have to use some of our fund balance. We have always used some of our fund balance. The problem with that is now that we cut our budget $1.6 million, we're not going to have that level of fund balance moving forward in FY '25 because it's just not going to be there. Because we're shrinking the use of that, so that carryover is just not going to happen. But if you want to know how much we've typically used in any given year, it's been anywhere between $500,000 and $700,000. If that helps as a starting point, I mean, that's
Well,
where
that was
we.
gonna be my question. What exactly do you feel comfortable using from the fund balance?
I'd say anywhere.
In light of, what we're in
Right.
financially here.
Well, I know that.
So what would you be willing to allocate for?
I'd say 700. Just simply because I can tell you that we have enrolled a significant amount of students with high needs just in the last couple weeks. We're going to have to add another, here I'm cutting, but now I'm going to have to add another life skills class. Probably you're going to have to put that class at Rock Hall. We probably have an additional 4 IAs that we're going to have to add for those significant students that have enrolled, one at the high school, one at Garnett, and we have 4 that are starting next year that we know for a fact. So, you know, I'm probably going to have to use some of that fund balance to add some positions back into the budget. So I'd say, you know, 700 is what I feel comfortable with.
So I'm looking at the numbers up here. Your FY 20,
Yeah, she does 700, we do 700, there'd be about $1 million shortfall still.
Yep.
That's kind of right where we'd be.
Say that again, Pat.
So it's 2,000,004 is the additional dollar ask. If maintenance of effort is 700, and we have to put in that 719, and she puts in an additional 700, so that'd be $1,000,004. So if
Right.
you take the $1,000,004 off of the 2,000,004 total ask, there'd still be $1 million shortfall between what she's asking for and what would be funded. Is that right? We kind of,
but if we didn't include the 250,
oh, the 250 would reduce it, yeah. If you went, if the 250 was on top.
Top of.
If it was on top of.
and the 125 is on top of it.
Yeah, but that,
100.
yeah.
We don't get that though, Sheriff. That you're talking about for that
Yeah,
implementation.
but we have to pay for it.
We gotta pay for it, right.
So it would be 875,000.
It can be included in the 700. We don't have to give additional money.
Well, I don't know that it is.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Talking
Yeah,
about
I
the
don't know that it is, only
Let's
because
put
the
that.
700.
The coordinator.
is-
Implementation
Coordinator.
coordinator.
Yeah, I think they reduced it to 83,000.
I saw something about that.
Yeah. No,
I
it was
just-
150?
I pulled up the bill.
It was a hun-
And it
it's
was passed
150?
with 150 with the cost share based on the wealth formula.
Which means we get 25 of it.
That's based on our
Yeah.
wealth formula. That's in the right ballpark. So the 700, I'm guessing, is based on the MOE formula, whatever combination of formula they're using with Kerwin, Thornton, everything else. It's not, that number hasn't changed since that bill was passed into law, so I'm guessing, because it was to give the school systems an additional 150 for the Kerwin implementation coordinator, so I'm guessing the MOE calculation, assuming they take that into account, will go up by whatever share the county is required to
Right.
provide.
Which I don't have that in front of me, so I don't
So
know.
isn't the real number 875,000?
Assuming we're interpreting that law correctly.
Yeah, if that's the way it goes, if it's on top of instead of included in.
Or actually, it might be more than that.
I don't,
719 for the maintenance of effort, plus the 250 from the state.
No,
The
take that out of the
250 can be-
equation.
Yeah, the
We
250
think that can be included, because maintenance of effort is already going up, we think that it can help us pay for maintenance of effort. If it weren't already going up, then it would have to be in addition to.
So that won't affect our maintenance of effort next year either, Sheriff. That's,
Right, because it's already going up by that amount, by more than that amount.
It'll be really helpful when the formulas come out.
Yep. And we're interpolating, or extrapolating, actually, at this point.
You're the financial person, so.
It depends on whether those things are inside or outside of yeah.
So 719 is maintenance of effort. I understand that you're suggesting that maybe the 250 be included in that 719. I'm suggesting that maybe it's not at this point.
Put it on top of it.
Put it on top of it. And then, you know, we're obligated for $125,000 for the coordinator position.
So you add that to it.
That's a,
On top of maintenance.
that's $1,094,000. Is that right?
What was the final number?
$1,094,000.
If you add the
Yep.
250 and the 125 on top.
Right.
And Dr. Couch is,
Gonna use 700,000.
I thought she said 900.
She said 700 reluctantly.
So then you're about 600,000.
And I'm what?
600,000?
Right. Because if you were to add the 250 on top of the 719 and then add the 125, that rough numbers, let's just say for ease of thinking about it, 1.1 mil. And Dr. Couch said 700,000, so that gets you about 1.8 versus the 2.4.
Yeah, so I'm short about six
So
or
if you take 700,000 from your 2.1, you can't take more than 700,000.
What'd you use last year?
A million, all of it, a million eight. And that's why we had to, that's why we were put in the position of making the cuts that we did this year. And we bumped up class size to about 24, which is not going over really well. But, I mean, but that's what we're doing.
Is that 700 that you're taking out of the budget gonna fall into fund balance this year?
We're hoping, we're estimating that, so we're trying to.
And that would help us
Maintain
in,
that,
that would
yeah.
help us in 25.
But so then the fund balance would really be closer to like 2.9, that's 700 in it, right?
Right.
Except,
No.
except so in the budget, you budgeted to use 1.8
No.
This year.
this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the question would be, how much of that 1.8 do you think you're actually gonna use versus?
But you were behaving yourself.
Of that 1.8, we think,
Well, I mean, I was probably
we'll
one of the
have
worst,
about
but I still knew
700.
I didn't
We
want-
hope.
Exactly.
You wouldn't
Yeah.
listen to
Oh, gosh, oh my gosh, no.
So theoretically, you'll have 2.9.
I
No,
can-
it
I
won't
can
add
go
to it
with the
because
bat and
we're
rock
gonna
wall
be
when
using
I went there.
Yeah.
1.8, but
Shit.
1.1, because you're not gonna use 700.
Right,
Okay, gotcha, so it's
Yeah.
already in there.
yeah, so
Yeah,
you,
okay.
I wish, but that's not the way it's gonna be.
Okay.
Is that a number you could work with if we were able to do, I mean, that's, obviously, that's, $400,000 or $500,000 short of what,
That's about close to 7.
is it
short.
really? If we come up with 1,000,001, and then you put 700, that'd be 1,000,008.
I'm still about 700 short.
I'm not sure how we can do anymore.
I think you'll,
I think,
I think probably they ought to go, I think probably, they ought to give them a chance to go back and see if it's anything else you could cut, but if not, you'll have to use more of your fund balance, and we'll just have to worry about it next year. I mean, it's gonna fall on us, because we're the funding source along. Does the state increase their funding next year? I mean, for this whole Kerwin thing to be going on, and then you to receive less state
I
funding,
know,
just
that's
drives me a
pretty-
little crazy.
Drives me worse.
I bet, yeah.
I'm just hopeful that at some point next session, that somebody's going to not really change the pillars, because I believe in the pillars of the blueprint. I think they're all great things, but we just don't know, all the counties, nobody knows how they're gonna pay for all this.
Well, we really need to panel on that wealth formula as much as anything else
That's
here.
what kills us.
It is.
We're gonna be hunting down funding for next year too with our
Already, I
lobbyists.
mean, that's.
Well, me
is-
too. I
is
mean,
next
I'm
year an
working it
election year,
too.
By the way.
And we
I'm working it.
appreciate that.
I'm working
Yeah,
it.
right, no, we do.
That's why I'm
Yeah.
hoping, if you need extra of that fund balance, I would use it, and we'll all be here next year figuring it out, and you're not gonna get it any less. I mean, we gotta come up with it. I don't
You
know.
have to understand one thing. This is a new board of commissioners, Yes, the old timers here. But there's two new ones here.
Ouch.
And I think Ronnie is committed as well as Albert and I. You know, if the school needs something, it's your job to come to us and ask us for the money. I don't think this is wrong. I don't think the school system should be a financial institution where you're banking money. I just don't. We don't allow any other department head to do that. And we're there to provide you the financial support you need, and we're trying to do the best we can.
Now, I just want to make sure you understand this, and I get it. It's a little bit different with running a business, if you will, and say, this is our budget and this is what we got to live with. With the school system and being a public institution, we have to be able to provide services to our students, you know, whoever walks in the door in the summer. So we don't have the luxury of saying, okay, these are the students that we, you know, gonna serve next year, and those are the only students we're gonna serve. If we have a high-need student that walks in the door, if we have a student that needs non-public education, we're on the hook, and then our budget has to be increased. So that's why we have to carry a certain amount, because we don't know what's going to happen. We do our best to plan, but we can't say, okay, we're gonna have 20 officers, and that's all we're gonna have this year, and we're not gonna add any more because that's in our budget. We don't have that luxury. So I don't want you to think that we're, you know.
You have to play the hand you're dealt.
We have to be able to take care of our situation. We have old buildings, we have a lot of needs that we have to be able to deal with, and those things just happen. So it's not that we're trying to be irresponsible or we're trying to take advantage of. We just have to be able to, you know, support our needs and educate our students whenever they walk in the door.
Where will we be, what this number that we would still have to cut? Let's say that we gave, done just what John said,
So I'm doing it kind of on the back of the envelope, but we made.
so we just took $1.4 million away from that. If we're gonna give $1.1 million, it's
Off of the 2.4 million?
off of that $2.4 million, so we've cut $1.3 million.
Yeah.
Well, if we take $1.1 million away from it, there'd be $1.3 million shortfall. And if they're saying that they can put 700,000 in.
I'm not worried about that, I'm worried about on our side.
If we commit to
We
the
had to cut a
1.1.
certain amount of money, where are we if,
Then there's
with using that
1.3
number?
taken out of our numbers.
You know what, I'm not even sure that I have a firm number on the positions, because we've got a lot of estimates in here. Like those 7 positions that we're saying are 700,000, and I don't know that we've really committed to cutting all those positions out. You wanna talk to the department heads, so I don't know that I've got a.
I don't think we got a choice, Ms. Pat. I mean, we're sitting here now talking
Yeah,
about
I
this.
don't think
I mean,
I have a firm
you
number
know.
for you. I think, you know,
Right, but weren't we like at 4 million?
yeah.
And so I think Ronnie's just asking for rough. if we
Well,
were at
you
4.
said before we deal with the education,
Right,
we were gonna still have to cut $3 million or
I think
something?
we were at 4.
I think we're down.
Roughly,
to 4.
roughly.
Okay, so if we did what John said, we've still gotta come up with $3 million worth of cuts somewheres?
Yes.
Well, we're gonna need to
Better get
put out a
Houdini's
memo.
magic
Yeah,
wand or
we're gonna have to
something.
get the department heads to.
That's what,
What I'd like to see you do is, I think what I suggested, and it was just a suggestion, is pretty generous with what we have to work with currently. And yes, I'd like to see you spend some of that fund balance. You said 700. I'd like to see you maybe think about a little bit more with the agreement, an honest agreement from us, that if you run into a problem with some unforeseen, that you come back to us and present that problem. But don't forget also about your rainy day fund, the 500,000. You know, so, I mean, we're talking about a lot of money that is underutilized. I know it's a safeguard, and I can appreciate that. But
right,
in these tough times, I don't know that we're irresponsible sitting here as elected leaders if we don't present that to you.
Right, and I
ask you for some
And
technical
I absolutely
consideration.
appreciate that. I just want to be very mindful that using one-time money for reoccurring costs,
And
which
believe me,
is,
we all understand how that works,
it
and it's not a good
it is
position to be in.
prescription for disaster. I'm just saying that. I
We're
mean,
just
if
trying
it
to
was,
survive this year
right.
right now.
This is what you call kicking the can down the road for a year and
right, well,
and
we
hoping
kicked
that,
it last year pretty far.
hoping
So,
that the legislature's gonna help us out and do something different
Right.
next year.
Right,
I mean, I think in Ronnie's defense and the past commissioners, you know, I wasn't here for the meeting, but they had a legislator sit right here and say, don't you worry about it, we got you covered. And they assumed that we didn't have to worry about it and we got you covered, where she didn't either run or didn't win.
Right.
And now we're all sitting here scratching our head,
That's the
trying to
truth.
figure out how to, you know, how to get it covered. And
I just don't want to create a hole that none of us can get out of, is what I'm trying to do. I get what you're saying,
We have
there's
a
only so much.
responsibility. We have a responsibility
Right,
for public safety and educate our kids.
Right.
Those are the two,
absolutely.
those are the two top, in my mind,
I would agree.
that we have to fulfill.
right,
So don't think we're gonna leave you high and dry, because we're not.
right.
And we know that we're the funding agency, so if it turns out that nothing changes, we gotta come up with
A plan.
a plan, and we gotta raise taxes. It's gonna be on us, so, I mean, we understand if you use it, we're gonna have to replace it next year. And look, you and I have had this conversation about fund balances years ago, but I will make the argument again, that Kent County is too little of a county to have a couple $1 million sitting on a shelf someplace, not benefiting anybody. We're
Right.
just too little for that, I think. I'm okay with your holding on to that 500 for a rainy day, but I'd like to see the fund balance used. It's a lot, there's no question about that, but I'd like to see us,
Right, and what I would say is, and listen, if we use 700, whatever that number is, you know, we're probably gonna have to use that again in FY '25. I mean, you know, so I'm trying to be mindful that whatever I use in '24, that I have enough set aside, so if the county still doesn't have the funds, then we have the ability to replace that, and see what I'm saying? So I don't want to burn it all and say, okay, let's just use a number, burn all 2 million right now, and then I have nothing, and then we're all
we don't
stuck.
either.
And you don't either, and then we're all sitting here scratching our heads saying, why didn't we think about this ahead of time? So if I use, say, 700, then I know that I'm gonna have to use another 700 again. So I'm just trying to be mindful about what is realistic in all of our eyes and what is going to put us in a sound financial position moving forward. So I fully recognize I'm gonna have, whatever I put in FY '24, I'm gonna have to replace in '25. I know that. So I'm trying to buy us a little bit of time to where it's
don't
not
take
going to
no
hurt
more than
you.
half of it.
It's not gonna hurt you, and it's definitely something that we can plan for, and hopefully somebody in their wisdom will come up with a financial picture that's going to help Kent County. I mean, I'm just trying to buy us a couple more years, so we can get to that arguably.
We appreciate that.
And like I said, I'm committed to you that I'm going to keep shaking the trees and meeting with people and using my connections to see what help we can get moving forward.
yeah, when we get past this budget time and where everybody's busy as a devil, but once we get past it.
We need to hit it hard.
We need to
We
really.
need to hit it hard.
And that wealth formula, I think, is what we really have to concentrate on, because it's the part that kills us.
Right,
Kent County can do everything that every other county can do,
right,
but that wealth formula,
right.
that just kills us.
Well, if they can't do anything, what my argument is, if they can't do anything with the wealth formula, they're not gonna do anything about that, then they need to come up with a separate allocation for sparsity and for small school size.
I agree with you
And then they need to,
100%.
if they really don't want to touch the wealth formula, then come up with something else and give that allocation to us. And then that way, it eases the requests that we have to make to the local, because that is something we can count on.
And it would look like that would be the easiest fix for them.
That's what I'm hoping. I
Yeah.
mean, I shared a document where it showed 37 counties, 37 states that are doing something like that. And the governor's office has that, and it's very clear about what the measurement that they're using to do that. So if they don't want to touch the wealth formula, then come up with another plan to help Kent County.
Separate us from the rest
Then-
and
then-
treat us different.
Because we're unique and we need to be
Yeah.
treated separately. So, I have a budget hearing at 6:30.
We got it.
So,
I think you got a starting point anyhow, or at least a vision.
Thank you.
And we're not done.
As
and-
CFO, like, I
Yeah, we
definitely
still got more work
appreciate
to
that.
do.
yeah, okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have 5 minutes.